You ran with McCain. You said you care about veterans and everything. Did Trump's comments about McCain bother you at all? Did Trump prefers people that didn't get captured?
Why did you run with John McCain if you're anti-wars?
To make a positive difference in our country.
But he would have sent more people to die. You're against war abroad, and yet I just want to remind younger viewers at home, you ran with the most warmongering senator of my lifetime.
You lied.
I'm a critic of Biden on his energy. I know facts are not your strong point. Is energy production higher today under Biden than under Trump? It's a simple yes or no question.
You're an obnoxious...
See, you're going to
I'm obnoxious. You're a racist.
Friends, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, hit like, comment, subscribe. It really helps us out, and I appreciate everybody who does that. I am so curious about this debate. It's Sarah Palin and Dave Smith versus Destiny and Mehdi Hasan.
Trump is more popular in his personal approval rating right now than he's ever been in his entire 8-year political career.
Donald Trump's a 4-year-old when it comes to understanding really any issue, but
They did it
especially
in
foreign
person.
policy. The United States economy is outperforming every other economy in the world right now under Biden's policies that ostensibly Harris will continue.
Trump actually tried to pull out of Syria, which he had campaigned on.
But he didn't said he doesn't respect the Constitution. They all consistently
No, I'm not saying, okay, fine. They don't respect the Constitution. We were in Syria unconstitutionally.
Please, I feel
What does that even mean?
I should be your mother and just shut you guys up. You don't think that Biden
Is energy production higher under Biden than Trump?
And you just
Is
lied
energy production
and
higher,
said
Sarah Palin?
that
It's a very simple
Biden
question.
didn't
I know
do it.
facts are not your strong point. Is energy production higher today under Biden than under Trump? It's a simple yes or no
You're
question.
an obnoxious...
I'm obnoxious. You're a
Oh my God, this is going to be amazing.
racist. We want to play that game?
There is just over a week to go in one of the most consequential elections in American history. And both campaigns are finishing big. Big rallies.
Kamala, you're fired. Get out, get out.
We are going to fight for the country we love.
Big names.
His obvious mental decline, his history as a convicted felon.
I'm not just MAGA. I'm Gothic MAGA.
Big audiences.
I always got more publicity than other people. I don't know exactly why.
You said a lot of wild
Maybe.
Big claims.
And not having a president of the United States who admires dictators.
Rebel rally at Madison Square Garden. I was there, the first time I've been to a Trump rally, or any political rally for that matter, and it was a fascinating experience. It'd be interesting to see what my panelists had to say about that. But the bottom line, we're 8 days from one of the most consequential elections in American history. And I want to spend the next hour with 4 very opinionated people with different opinions to thrash out the big picture.
I think there's a really easy argument to make that this election is one of the most important elections in American history. Just because of the crossroads that this country is in. Like, we could head down a number of different paths that are wildly different depending on the outcome of this election. You know, like, how much of the country would have changed all that fundamentally if Mitt Romney had won in 2012? I don't really know. I mean, it would be different. I don't know how fundamentally different it would be, or it would have been, rather, if Mitt Romney had won that election. Or even if John McCain had won in 2008, or if Kerry had won in 2004. I don't know how different the country would be. But depending on who wins this election, Kamala or Trump, is going to determine sort of one of many different directions that we can go in on this side, and then again over here on this side. And these two sides are so different from each other. So, you know, I don't think it's overstating it to say that this is, in terms of stakes, this is one of the highest stakes that the country has ever had for an election. Probably like top 5. Okay.
Yeah. Themes of where we are with this race, and more importantly, who's going to win, and should they win? So let me introduce them. First of all, former Governor Sarah Palin. You were former governor of Alaska, and you're the vice presidential nominee, of course, in the 2008 McCain-Obama election. Welcome to you.
Thank you.
Mehdi Hasan, the editor-in-chief of Zateo News. Mehdi, great to see you again. Dave Smith, the libertarian commentator and host of the Part of the Problem podcast. Good to see you. And Destiny, streamer and political commentator. So 4 big names, big beasts in the punditry jungle. Brought you all together. Sarah, you were at the rally last night.
Yes.
What was it like for you?
It was an electric environment. Most of Trump
rallies are like that, though. You know, just so much energy and just a lot of enthusiasm. Last night, I think the biggest surprise, though, was outside of the arena, how much enthusiasm you could feel out there with all the red hats and all the New Yorkers who were so bold and courageous coming out for him.
No protesters. So the Secret Service told me 150 people turned up to protest. And all I could think was, back in 2016, I remember tens of thousands of people marching around the streets of Manhattan in fury about Trump. Where did they go?
Right. So I think that was the big difference. Was it was just in terms of a positive environment. It was so much positivity, and like you say, the protesters seem to be non-existent. I don't know if they chickened out or what, or you know.
Just as a random aside, just to talk about my own personal preference, I hate the trend, this new trend of lip fillers. I actually hate it. I think it looks so much better to just age naturally. I really wish women didn't feel this pressure. I really wish women, like a lot of women, didn't. I don't know. Listen, I get tattoos or whatever, so it's like I change my body, and so maybe I have no right to judge anybody. I have a piercing, you know. So, but to me, it does not make you look young. I just like when I see it, I just feel bad. Like I feel bad. That's what I don't know if I'm being way too judgmental. I feel like I probably am, to be honest with you, but. That's just my feeling. I'm just saying. I wish that women didn't feel this need to do the Botox injections with their lips. I just don't think it looks. I don't think it makes you look young. I think it just. I just don't like it. I just don't.
They just didn't have it organized or however they usually roll. But yeah, they weren't there.
What do you say to those who this morning have woken up to headlines in the New York Post and many other media outlets saying it was, you know, the nearest thing to 1939 all over again?
Break news! Hutch opposes lip injections. Does that mean he opposes gender-affirming care? We don't know, but we are asking the questions. Stay tuned.
But also specifically latching onto the comedian Tony Hinchcliffe, who told what I thought was some extremely lame and offensive excuses for jokes about Puerto Ricans, about Latinos, like he told some about Jewish people and so on. None of it seemed to work. He was the first one out as a speaker. And of course, all it did was allow people who hate Trump, particularly in the media, to say, well, look, this is what we warned you about. This is what this is all about. What do you say to people that say that?
You know, it was Hillary Clinton who made that general accusation, the false accusation that anybody who was going to show up there at the rally was, you know, a Nazi or Nazi sympathizer. And I think she incentivized a lot of us, me personally.
Dude, this is not a joke. At the rally, before Byron Donald spoke at the rally, who's a black man, they played Dixie. Like, how was this an accident? There's just no way this was an accident.
Oh, I wish I was in a land.
The lyric right there is, I wish I was in a land of cotton. I don't know much about the song, but was it not, was it like a de facto like Confederacy song? And then they stopped playing the song. They just played that one line. I wish I was in a land of cotton.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Congressman Byron Donalds.
The theory is that like there's a lot of I was reading a thread about it yesterday, but I guess a lot of like young conservative political operatives became politically conscious using like 4chan and 8chan. That's why you saw who was it? DeSantis had to fire one of his young staffers for literally being a Nazi. So I was just reading a thread about it that it's like a problem. Like a lot of young Republican staffers are not so subtly hiding their power level. Who was the kid that got fired? DeSantis had to fire someone for being a Nazi. Ron DeSantis fires staffer who retweeted a video with Nazi imagery. Jesus.
To get there, to be there present, to prove her wrong, to prove that, oh gosh, here's another lie, here's another mischaracterization of who Trump supporters are. So, no, there was no hint of what had happened back in 1939. Hillary, too, forgets that she was at one of those rallies. Her husband's rally was held.
I swear to God. Sorry.
Also, she certainly didn't ascribe to herself and to her husband that same false accusation.
Mehdi, I'm sure you agree with every word that Sarah Palin has just said. I can't think of two more kindred political spirits.
I mean, if I take Governor Palin's point about going to prove something wrong, the problem is we weren't proved wrong. That rally could have proved us wrong. Donald Trump could have run a rally, and the Republican Party could have done a rally and said, what are you talking about? What a fake liberal accusation. Instead, they just served up line after line of hate, and that's the problem. Trump is who he says he is. MAGA is what we think it is. So when you tune into the rally, I wasn't there, thankfully, but when I tune in and see what was said, I mean, you just have to listen. You mentioned some of it. Puerto Rico is a floating island of garbage. Black people like to cut up watermelons, not pumpkins, on Halloween. Jews are stingy. Palestinians are terrorists. Effing illegals.
His argument, Mr. Hinchcliffe, is
only one of those is true, but you have to guess which one.
Kamala Harris is surrounded by pimp handlers. She's the Antichrist and the devil, right? The neo-Nazi great replacement theory. Immigrants are being brought to replace us. And that's all before Trump even took the stage. That's just the warm-up act.
Well, that's the point I was going to make. I was there. It was 6 hours. I would say that the offensive bits that you're talking about, some of them were clearly not intended the way they were, some were. But I would throw back at you.
No, you don't.
I reckon if you had...
Wait, what?
6 hours right now of Kamala Harris and her people talking about Trump, it wouldn't take them long before they're into he's the new Hitler.
Okay.
And on the scale of
this is desperate stuff even by your standards.
Well, hang on,
I was at the
this idea that Piers is saying that some of the stuff was meant the way that people took it and some of it wasn't. Like, what? Can you get into specifics? Like, what are you even talking about?
See, I sat for 6 hours in a very uncomfortable seat. People did not make racist remarks. Hold on, let me finish. You interrupted my point.
I'm asking you a question.
Go on.
You've got a chance after this.
I will,
We'll do one for
worry.
you. But my point is, it wouldn't be long before the Hitler stuff comes out. And honestly, on a scale of offence, calling someone the new Hitler, isn't that actually worse than anything else?
First of all, I was at the DNC. I sat there 6 hours every night in a very uncomfortable seat. Nobody called Donald Trump Hitler from the stage. So your argument falls apart. Let's talk about what actually happened last night. The governor can do whataboutism. I don't know why you're doing the whataboutism. Let's talk about what happened last night.
Well, can I call it as I see it?
Let me finish my point. Before Trump even got on stage, we had the Puerto Ricans, the Jews, the Palestinians, effing illegals, pimp handlers, Antichrist. That was all there. Then Trump gets on stage and says immigrants are invading and occupying our country, which is the language of the far right. He talks about the press being the enemy of the people, which is straight from Goebbels. You've condemned that line. He talked about the enemy within, which is literally a Hitler line. So if you don't want to be accused of sounding like Nazis, there's a simple solution. Stop talking like Nazis.
There you go.
Dave?
All right. I don't know. I think the whole Nazi comparison is really tired and played out. And by the way, I also think, like, when Trump calls Kamala Harris a communist, I don't think that really hits home. I think all this stuff is kind of silly hyperbole. I also, look, I'm good friends with Tony Hinchcliffe, so...
Lucky.
Well, I'm just stating my bias.
So talk to me about his act.
Look, if you
his argument, I saw him tweeting, saying, well, I had to go at everybody. I was joking.
Well, look, this is what Tony does. And so, like, if you want to argue with me that you don't think it's appropriate to put, like, an edgy comedian at the beginning of your political rally.
I mean, it was obviously not smart. I mean, it just the profound lack of foresight betrays a stunning level of incompetence, because they vet these speeches, you guys. They don't let people just go up there and say whatever. So some Republican or some Trump staffer looked at that speech and said, yeah, go up there and say that. It's not, the racism to me is not even the most notable thing about it. It's the stunning incompetence that the Trump campaign thought that would be, they just thought that would just, we saw the backlash. It was like Ricky Martin, Bad Bunny, J-Lo, and then some other major Puerto Rican artist with a combined reach on Instagram of like over 40 million people were all angrily posting about this last night and endorsing Kamala on the same day that she unveiled a plan for Puerto Rico. She unveiled it before that joke even happened. So it was like a perfect storm of opportunity for Democrats to come in and seize on that moment. And there was a not so insignificant amount of Puerto Ricans that live in crucial states like Pennsylvania. I believe 600,000 Puerto Ricans live in Pennsylvania, or people of Puerto Rican descent. It's just stunning incompetence. Number one, I don't get the joke. Like, I'm all about edgy humor, truly. Like you can say a really fucked up joke about whatever, and if as long as it's funny and as long as it's clever, I don't think that there are very many things that are off limits. There are some things that I personally will never joke about because I'm just honestly not funny enough to pull off a lot of these jokes. Like, if you're going to do a joke about SA or, you know, World War II or, you know, the current, like, Israel-Palestine conflict, it better be really funny. Because if you hit, you hit big. But if you win, there's like a 99% chance it's not going to be funny. And people are just going to be like, what the f? So I'm not against edgy humor. I just, what was the joke? I don't understand what the joke was. The joke is that Puerto Rico is an island of floating garbage. What is the joke there? What is the punchline? I just don't get, like, at least South Park, they'll do these, like, South Park is committed to some bits for literally over a decade, or literally two decades. You've seen South Park commit to certain bits that are super over the top, but there's usually some kind of a setup. There's usually some kind of like an absurdity, some kind of a social commentary, like something, you know, something beneath it. But to just get up there and be like, Puerto Rico is a island of garbage. Like, somebody, like, and I can't stress it enough, somebody greenlit that speech. Someone on Trump's team read that speech and said, yeah, get up there and go do that. It's stunning incompetence. And we're in the home stretch of this race, you guys. There are undecided voters. There really are. They exist. You know, most of the people they're locked in. Like, I don't think we're going to see too many people change their vote from Trump to Kamala or vice versa, Kamala to Trump. I think 99.99% of their voters are locked in. But there are undecided voters that could go either way. And little things like a joke about Puerto Rico at a rally like that can catch fire and become the dominant narrative going into election day. And it could have an impact. I'm not saying it will. I'm saying it could. There are certain stories that if the stories become big enough, that's what people are thinking about when they're going to vote. And we're in the last week here. So just, I mean, I cannot fathom whoever greenlit that speech should be fired immediately. I don't know why any Republican would ever hire them again. It's just, that was the most obvious bomb that was going to blow up in their faces. And someone didn't even think twice about that. It's crazy.
Fine, but I don't think it's fair to like lump all those things together as if they were in a serious speech. Clearly the guy was making jokes, and if you don't like that, that's fine.
Hold on. What I quoted was not just from Tony Hinchcliffe. It was Trump's childhood friend who called Kamala the Antichrist.
My point is that you were mixing in what the comedian said with what other people said. So I think they should be viewed differently. I do think that there is Donald Trump has found a way since he entered politics in 2016 to do something that's very unconventional that nobody else in politics is really doing, which is that he makes his events entertainment. He makes them comedy. When people come out to
entertainment for, I don't know how else to say it, idiots, emotionally, mentally stunted people, 5th grade insults that a literal 12-year-old would laugh at. Infantile is a good word. It's entertainment for like bottom of the barrel, sub, you know, -20 median IQ people find that entertaining. I'm just going to be super like coastal elite liberal, holier than thou in this take, because it's just not, none of it is funny. It's lazy, juvenile. It's just the lowest hanging fruit that you could possibly imagine. So that's my take on that.
To see Donald Trump, it's a different feeling than just listening to a policy speech.
That's why, I mean,
you may like that or not like that, but I do think that and it's almost like after 8 years of this, if the response from Trump critics is you're Hitler, that's just not hitting home, because whatever it is that people are seeing, that's not it.
No, it's a show.
Well, a lot of people
I called him, he's the Mick Jagger of politics in the sense that Jagger's 80, Trump's 78. It is a show. You turn up to about 30 speakers of increasing celebrity status. It was like being at a big music festival where the band gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Then you're into J.D. Vance and Elon Musk and Melania Trump, and then the big one, the headline act, on comes the big rock star. That's how he does this. Yeah. That's his old television hat on, understanding entertainment. And Madison Square Garden, of course, is an iconic venue. It's the heart of Manhattan. It's the place where you would least expect to see a Republican rally.
It's not a swing state.
And at one stage last night, every single network, main network and cable network in America, was taking it live, including Mehdi, your old employers, MSNBC, who vowed not to take any of his rallies. For $1 million, which is what it cost him to rent that venue, he's getting about $100 million worth of publicity. That's got to be good politics. Never mind anything else.
Oh, I think so. I mean, if you're just like analyzing it in terms of like whether it helped him or hurt him, there's something powerful about going into your opponent's territory, selling out a big arena, and getting that type of press. So in that sense, I think it was politically a win.
I have seen some encouraging numbers out of Georgia. The turnout in Georgia seems to be pretty massive. So we shouldn't overlook this possibility here. This is a potential map right here. She loses Wisconsin, but wins Georgia and gets to 276. But I have been seeing those Georgia numbers. There's a lot of black voters in Georgia. A lot. So
for Donald Trump.
Destiny, where are we with this race? Because the polling suggests that it's a knife edge, too close to call. But if I'm a Democrat looking at the swing state polling in particular, I'm pretty nervous right now.
I think as an American, I'm pretty nervous. It feels like there is just like a totally different standard that both sides can play by. It's really funny listening to the idea that one statement in a 6-hour entire rally, can't be used to convict Trump or his campaign or the rally. Meanwhile, when it comes to Democrats, you guys will pick out like one line from somebody, and that will be fair to characterize their entire speech. They're absolutely not as bad as each other. Because the difference is that while Trump will have jokes...
in terms of picking out lines from lengthy speeches, I think both sides play that game equally
Yeah, but the
hard.
problem is somebody will pick out, say, the Biden line where he talks about MAGA Americans, and then when you read the speech immediately after, he goes, not all Republicans are MAGA Americans, it's a minority of the party. It's just these people that deny, for instance, the election outcome, right? He'll specify, he'll clarify. Whereas for Trump, you can pick out lines, and these lines are not only consistent with everything else that he says, they're consistent with the policy that he advocates for and tried to pass in government. We're living in two completely and totally separate worlds where the standards for both sides are just out of this world.
So why is it that he may win? After everything that happened in the first term, after the way it ended.
The economy, a sort of growing nativism in America, and this is a trend that's sort of this is a thing that we're observing in other countries as well, that there's a sharp increase in nativism. So xenophobia, fear of immigration, to the point where 63% of the country would favor, on paper, a policy of mass deportation. Even if probably most of those people have no idea what the consequences of that would actually be. Like if Trump actually won and did a mass deportation thing, I am positive that there would be enormous outcry. Jingoism, I don't know if that's more relevant than like nativism right now. But it'll be because of like fear of immigration and the economy. That's how Trump will win if he wins.
Indeed, after the fact he was dead and buried really 2 years ago. I mean, I remember Ron DeSantis being way ahead in the polling to be a Republican nominee.
Yeah, before he ever talked to a single voter.
Right, but obviously but actually you could chart Trump's recovery was when the Justice Department started going after him in all sorts of different legal actions, and that is when you can see Trump's popularity starting to go up.
I totally disagree. It started to go up when he started to be more active in campaigning.
He went out to defend himself against all the legal charges.
Trump's popularity in the Republican primary went up when they started announcing the indictments. We did not see a commensurate increase in his overall popularity in the country around the same time. So he consolidated support. There was he was successful in portraying himself as a martyr when it was just indictment after indictment after indictment after indictment, and that helped him among Republican primary voters. We did not see his public approval rating go up in the country overall. And I don't know if I've seen any compelling data to demonstrate that a majority of independents feel like he was improperly targeted. Maybe that data exists. I just haven't seen it.
Charges.
He hasn't defended himself against any legal charge, to be clear. His defense is, I need criminal immunity. That's his defense. There was nothing was defensible. He didn't deny a single thing. He didn't say anything didn't happen. He said, I need criminal immunity from the things I'm being charged with. I can't possibly commit crimes.
Nobody has more aggressively defended themselves against criminal charges than Trump.
Name one defense. What's the defense for the Mar-a-Lago thing? What's the defense for the conspiracy to overturn the election thing?
You're conflating what I mean by defense with your idea of defense.
My idea of defense is like you say, this is why I didn't commit a crime. Not, I did commit a crime and I need immunity. Like immunity by definition legally is not a defense,
but in relation to the one that he's actually being convicted of, I still think it was an absolute farce and a woeful act of self-harm by the Democrats who fueled this to go after Trump first for a bit of paper shuffling over paying a porn star off 18 for a fling 18 years ago, which he denies ever having.
How many months did we have Hillary Clinton's emails being the front and center story for the news? How much did we hear about Hunter Biden and his, his cock and his crack addiction or whatever?
This is how you have to handle. This is how you have to handle Republicans. Like, I feel like Destiny's doing a really good job of laying out the blueprint for how to have these conversations. Because I think it's so important to take this kind of tact. Like, don't let them get away with anything, okay? Because if they start opening their mouth, they're going to hit you with 5 bullshit talking points. So cut them off at the first bullshit talking point and force them to defend it. Attack that position and force them to defend it. Don't let them gish gallop. I just think Destiny's done a really remarkable job of tackling these kinds of arguments, especially in the last 9 months. I just feel like he's done a really good job. Like, I feel like I've always tried to do that when depending on who I'm debating or whatever. Like, I always try to do that, but he's just perfected it. I mean, he's just really, really sharp.
Who's, by the way, still not running for president.
How could Bill Clinton, when he was actually president of the United States, have sex with an intern in the Oval Office and then lie?
What does that have to do with the hush money trial? What does that have to do with the hush money trial? Did Bill Clinton use campaign funds to silence Monica Lewinsky and then improperly mark those payments down as private payments instead of contributions in kind to a campaign? These two things are nothing alike. They're nothing alike. What Bill Clinton did with Monica Lewinsky was, you could argue, immoral or untoward or improper or beneath the office of the presidency or whatever. It has nothing to do with Trump's hush money trial.
About it to the American people, and it's not him that gets dragged through a criminal court. It's Trump over a fling with a porn star 18 years ago.
Hold on.
He's rewriting history right now, because what happened with Bill Clinton was it started with an independent counsel that was appointed to look into Whitewater, which was a business that he had to do with 10 years prior or something like that. And this guy, Ken Starr, in the course of investigating Bill Clinton for this Whitewater thing, found this other stuff with Monica Lewinsky. And then that turned into, I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember this, but that was a 2 or 3 year, the Monica Lewinsky story was front page news for literally 2 years. And he was impeached in the House, as far as I recall. Was he impeached? No, he was not. They couldn't get the votes to impeach him. But this idea that this is comparable to what Trump went through is insane.
And I could be wrong because I'm younger. I'm only 35, okay? My understanding is that Bill Clinton was impeached in the House, and that Bill Clinton was...
But he was never...
I don't think he was. I think they actually failed to... Oh, was he impeached? That's right, yes.
Criminally charged.
And then Bill, because he didn't... I don't think he committed necessarily a crime. I think
he paid off Paula Jones $850,000.
That didn't come out of campaign funds, and it was publicly disclosed. God! I wish I was on that panel right now. Piers has no idea what he's talking about.
Not even close. Bill Clinton is disgraced.
No.
Bill Clinton is disgraced in the Republican Party, and Donald Trump is the hero of the Republican Party. They're not even remotely similar to how the parties treat them.
Yeah, but Bill Clinton's a Democrat, and
this
he still
is one
speaks
about
to the
it
DNC.
time I'm not seeing. We're doing Bill Clinton now?
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, I am.
All right, let's talk about Bill Clinton. Did he overturn an election? Did he send a mob to the Capitol to overturn an election?
I just told you what he did.
No, but I'm asking you what he did compared to Trump.
Well, he had sex with an intern in the Oval Office and then lied about it.
Trump don't know what impeached was. Trump not impeached either. No, you don't know what it is. So if someone gets impeached in the House, they are impeached. They are impeached, regardless of what the Senate does. If the Senate convicts them, they can take certain actions like remove them from office and vote to make sure they can never hold public office ever again. But if the House takes an impeachment vote and then that vote passes, that president is impeached. So Trump was not just once, but twice impeached. And Bill Clinton was, in fact, impeached in the 90s. I had forgot that particular detail.
The American people. Do you not think that's important?
Yes, I was against Bill Clinton. You picked the wrong guy. I was never a fan of Bill Clinton. Nice try. Try again. Let's talk about Trump. I tried to overturn an election. He's not been tried for it. Do you think it's right, Piers, as someone who objected to the insurrection, that he's going into election in 8 days? You asked Destiny, why is he still doing so well? Because he was never tried. You want to talk about the DOJ? I think the DOJ is an embarrassment. I wish they'd gone after him. They didn't go after him because he's going into an election having not seen the inside of a courtroom. For Georgia, for DC, we heard him commit a crime on tape, Piers. You heard him. You heard him him say to Brad Raffensperger, find me the votes. If you had done that, I'd done that, we'd be in prison right now. We wouldn't be running for re-election. That is the reality. The American people never got to hear in court all of the charges against him. You saw the Jack Smith indictment.
Just so I'm clear on this here,
Yeah.
and forget how you, okay, Trump's guilty of all these crimes, whatever. When you're asking why is he getting so much support, your honest theory is that if he had just been prosecuted more, then his people would have turned against him?
It's not monocausal. There's many reasons he's doing well.
Okay, but one of the causes.
Democrats have run a bad campaign. Gaza is a factor, etc., etc.
Sure. Lots of factors.
The media doesn't know how to cover this stuff. But yes, clearly...
You think it would...
I don't agree. I think the Democrats have run a not perfect, but a really good campaign.
I've heard him with his supporters had he
Not
been
with his
tried
supporters,
for
but we know
insurrection,
nothing
inciting an
hurts him with his
insurrection.
supporters. I've given up on his supporters. We're talking about the people who actually are persuadable. Yes. When was he most unpopular, Dave, in his entire life? On January
Immediately after January 6th.
7th, 2021.
Yes.
So yeah, America's a country of amnesiacs. I can say that as an American and an immigrant.
But Mehdi,
people just memory hold everything Trump did.
Mehdi, for a whole year, they've gone after him legally, and right now Trump is more popular.
And every time it's made him more popular.
Right, but
every single
Trump
time.
is more popular in his personal approval rating right now than he's ever been in his entire 8-year political career. How can that be happening?
Mehdi just explained it, and he's right. You know, a significant percentage of Americans are almost entirely disengaged with politics. They have no idea who Mike Johnson is. They have no idea what the filibuster is. They have no idea who the Senate Majority Leader is. They couldn't tell you a single bill that Biden signed into law. They couldn't tell you a single bill that Donald Trump signed into law. And these things make headlines. January 6th was a national disgrace. It stayed in the headlines for a little while, and then people get amnesia. They forget because they weren't even that engaged to begin with. The extent of what they know about January 6th is in the form of, 20-second highly digestible clips on TikTok. They couldn't tell you about like the false elector scheme. They couldn't tell you about the speech at the Ellipse that day. They couldn't tell you about some of the testimony that Trump officials gave about what Trump was up to that day. Things that aren't even disputed, facts that aren't even disputed, timelines that are not even disputed. And that's like probably minimum 50% of the country. And so Piers is asking like, why is he more popular now than he was before? And his narrative, it's because, well, the Democrats kept attacking him. That's why he got more popular. The Democrats were unfairly targeting him. That's why he got more popular. No, that's not the reason. The reason is because most people don't know what the is going on in this country. That's just the reality.
If it isn't actually a lot of Americans going, this is absurd.
I mean, if we're going to play the polls game, all the polls show that he's actually, the American people think he should have been prosecuted.
Okay, sir.
Trump supporters recognize that it is not Donald J. Trump, a person whom is to be supported. It's what he represents. The Trump train that has been so aggressively moving forward with great intention for this country, we recognize it
The Trump train that has so aggressively been moving forward, I'm sorry. You're just rewriting history at this point. The Trump train has slowed to a crawl since 2018. The Trump train is stalled. There's a limit on how popular Trump can get. And that limit is arguably like, at certain times it was lowered, and then right now it's like up to about 45, 46, 47%. But we're not talking about a train. We're talking about a deeply unpopular political movement in this country that has been penalized at the ballot box over and over and over and over and over again, all up and down the country in red states. Like states like Kansas, that was it Kansas that voted to do the abortion thing? What's up, Junkyard? I was uninformed and I looked into everything. I see why Trump is someone we all should be scared of, what he might do in this country if he is elected to office. Agreed.
It's what is represented on that. It's all about freedom. It's all about not allowing our country to be fundamentally transformed, as Barack Obama had promised he and his ilk that they would do to America. He said that back in 2008.
It's Trump that is the one that's running on fundamentally transforming this country, not Kamala. Kamala's running on like, I'm going to put a Republican in my cabinet. I'm going to assemble a bipartisan commission of Republicans and Democrats to advise me on policy. I'm going to like attack the center. It's Trump that's like, I'm going to fire 90% of the administrative state, dissolve some of our government agencies altogether. I'm going to appoint Elon Musk to head like a government oversight agency with the goal of like stripping as much fat as you could possibly imagine. He's talking about literally Donald Trump at the rally that he did yesterday, he said, get ready for some 1700s laws. He is the one that is running on fundamentally changing this country. The Democratic Party are not doing that right now. I mean, you could argue that they flirted with it in 2020, but the progressive wing of the party lost. The Warren wing of the party lost. The Bernie wing of the party lost. The Kamala wing of the party lost in 2020. And it was Joe Biden that he was the guy. We are not running on. There was like a whole thing with Biden. It's wildly out of context, but he was saying like, you know, I don't want to fundamentally, like nothing in your life is going to fundamentally change. He said to a room of rich donors. Now the context there was he was talking about raising their taxes to pay for social spending programs, and the context was, I may tax you more, but you're so rich that your lives are not going to fundamentally change. That was the context of that quote that got completely bastardized by not just MAGA, but a lot of the progressives in 2020 as well.
We recognizing we don't need a fundamental transformation of America. We need a restoration of all that's good about America.
What is the freedom that Donald Trump represents?
And that is what Trump.
Well, that's an interesting question.
Is it the freedom to not have an abortion, to have a police officer looking over you when you go to get tested for pregnancy? Is it the freedom to have a president that lives above criminal prosecution? Is it the freedom to have tariffs related to every single product that we might import into the country? What is the freedom?
We'll take one freedom that he is quite adamant about, because the majority of Americans are adamant about, and that's our.
If she says freedom of speech, I'm gonna Minecraft myself.
Second Amendment rights.
I'm sorry. How much anti-gun legislation or executive action did Biden do? And then compare that to Trump. Biden did nothing. Trump banned bump stocks, so that's an auto loss for you.
Well, Biden did. Now, Destiny's wrong here, because we did do there was a gun reform bill that expanded background checks and red flag laws. And Prodigy, thanks so much for the gift of sub.
What's the next?
Well, let's talk about Kamala and her position.
Okay.
Are you saying Kamala or are you saying Kamala?
I say Kamala, because I don't see any point in deliberately mispronouncing her name.
Like Trump does every single time he speaks.
I don't want to
Hussein Obama.
Yeah, Hussein, yeah.
And they called him the new Hitler, so all's fair in love and war.
Excuse me, but also, didn't Trump try to accuse Obama of not being born in the United States? Wasn't that his entrance into politics? Again, it's not just what he says, it's what he does. Just asking questions. And even when Arpaio came out with the birth certificate, they said no apology for that.
Okay, so you asked about the freedoms
when you're called a Nazi,
they called Obama a communist for 8 years.
Let me finish
oh my goodness!
But if you this one point, it's all you have. It's really sad.
It's quite a big point because you're comparing.
It's not because Trump calls Harris.
The whole complaining that people compare him to Nazis is ridiculous. It didn't even start with Donald Trump, you guys. The Republicans, the conservative, evangelical driven movement in this country has been accusing liberals of being full-on communists, of being Satan worshippers, of being groomers. They accuse us of wanting to abuse children. They accuse us of wanting to destroy the nuclear family. They accuse us of wanting to destroy capitalism and implement bread lines. They call us fascists and authoritarians, and all of this before Trump. And Trump just takes that and dials it up to 11. When we talk about recent rhetoric, calling people like me, and I would say I'm left of the median Democratic voter, but I'm not that far left. You know what I mean? I'm close to the median voter in this country. I'm very policy driven. I'm a fan of incremental change and checks and balances and these kinds of things. And he calls people like me a radical communist who is an enemy from within. So this pearl clutching from Piers Morgan about some people making comparisons from Donald Trump to Hitler is so beyond bad faith. Piers knows that this is just total.
Trump say immigrants were the poisonous to the blood of the nation or whatever?
You're comparing Trump to the most evil person in modern history, who murdered 12 million people, who perpetrated a Holocaust of 6 million.
Hitler. The only person I know who's called Trump Hitler is his running mate, J.D. Vance.
And his last general called him a fascist.
Oh yeah, his last general, by the way, his top general said he's a fascist.
These are the people that have worked the closest to him.
His chief of staff says he praised Hitler. Should we go down the list?
Well, he didn't praise Hitler.
Do you know more about Trump? I know you're friends with him.
He said he would like to have had the loyalty of Hitler's generals.
That's not true. He said that's not true, Piers. Let's be some facts. He said.
The quote was, Hitler got some things right,
even know
he said,
if
quote,
he said that or not.
Hitler did some good things, is what he said.
He denies that. He denies saying that.
Oh, Trump denies it.
The Charlottesville rally.
How do you know he did?
Well, if Trump denies it, we can't possibly interrogate that, right?
Piers, you trust Donald Trump over General John Kelly. Just say that to the world. I want to hear you say it.
Possibly on that,
Not
yeah.
possibly, do you? Yes
It's
or
been
no?
denied.
So
by other people who were in the
Trump
room.
lies in
I love what Mehdi's doing right here. He's forcing him. Who do you think is more trustworthy? Retired Marine Corps General John Kelly, former chief of staff, former secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. Do you trust Donald Trump more than John Kelly?
Every breath.
Other people have.
And Piers just cowardly is like, oh, maybe. Really? No.
I don't dispute that he has a problem with the truth, but I would say that other people who were in the room at the time say he never said it.
So let's just be clear. All of the top generals and military people who worked with him: Mark Milley, John Kelly, Jim Mattis, H.R. McMaster.
They're all fired,
Mark
right?
Esper.
They're
None
all
of them were
fired.
fired, actually. No, McMaster quit. Mattis quit. Kelly quit. So you're wrong again, Piers.
Oh, dear.
Facts matter, Piers. I know you're pushing.
When you say quit, what do you mean?
They
quit,
literally walked away.
Or they were forced away.
No. Let me finish because you're getting this all wrong. I know you get your talking points from Fox these days.
Oh dear.
Well, you did. You just said something that Fox says. John Kelly walked
I
away.
sit in my liberal chair when I do the fire.
John Kelly walked away and Trump praised him on the way out. Mattis walked away, Trump praised him on the way out. The only time Trump started criticizing them is when they pointed out stuff that he had said to them.
Dear.
So all these generals are lying, and Donald Trump, a man who has problems with the truth, to use your phrase, is telling the truth. Come on, Piers, it's embarrassing.
Well, but listen, I tend to agree with you. I don't know. I don't trust Donald Trump for sure. But even I know a little bit about your politics. But am I really supposed to just these generals are all beyond lying? I mean, Mattis.
Why would they lie? Why would these people lie? These are career top brass military officials. And it's not like you can't get any, listen, Flynn was a 4-star general, for example. He's insane. But if you're going to accuse them of lying, point to something, right? If I accuse Flynn of lying, I can point to a lot of stuff to be like, this guy's insane. I can point you to a video that he recorded swearing allegiance to QAnon and be like, bro, this guy's insane. Normal people don't do this. Sane people don't do this, right? So if you want to make the case that Mattis is lying, if you want to make the case that McMaster is lying, if you want to make the case that Kelly is lying, if you want to make the case that Milley is lying, is there anything you can point to in their past, anything at all, to demonstrate that these guys have displayed dishonesty in the past? Anything. And then you have to ask, what possible incentive would they have to lie about this person? John Kelly worked with Donald Trump for 2 years. For 2 years. He was his chief of staff for a full year. A chief of staff, I don't know if you guys know this, a chief of staff is basically attached at the hip to the presidency 24/7. As soon as they wake up, they're right there with the president all day, every day. And Kelly was Trump's chief of staff for a full year before he walked away. What would be their incentive to lie right now? Kelly is not coming out, as far as I'm aware, and endorsing Kamala. I don't know if any of these generals have come out and said that they were endorsing one candidate over the other. But why would they lie about it?
As you know, right? Mattis resigned because Trump actually tried to pull out of Syria, which he had campaigned on.
But he didn't
and run
criticize
on.
Trump.
No, by the way,
I agree
listen,
with you.
No, he did.
No. He said he doesn't respect the Constitution. They all consistently
No.
say
I'm not saying. Okay, fine, but what does that even mean to them? They don't respect the Constitution.
What do you mean? What does that mean to them? These are people that swore an oath to the Constitution. They didn't swear an oath to Donald Trump. They swore an oath to the Constitution. All of them are veterans. They literally fought in multiple theaters of war to defend the Constitution. Now, we can argue about whether or not these conflicts were, especially the Iraq War or whatever, but they actually followed through on that oath and put their body on the line and defended the Constitution with their life, with potentially their life. So for him to be like, what does that even mean? For him to say that Donald Trump doesn't respect the Constitution, what the do you think it means, Dave Smith? How more specific do you need to get? Why does that need to be explained?
We were in Syria unconstitutionally. We were there without a declaration of war.
The game is always comparing both sides.
No,
Trying to
I'm
pretend
not.
that they're the same. It's not even wrong because they even declared war since World War II.
Yes, I know. That's my point. The thing is, you're just projecting that I'm playing that game.
Dave,
I'm talking to him about something else.
Dave,
I'm not playing your dumb game.
I'm agreeing with you on the foreign policy. I'm agreeing with you. What I'm saying is,
pretend to laugh all you want.
Do you believe all the generals are just attacking? Forget the generals. Go through everyone, his press secretary, his vice president. We can go through the list. NBC went to 44 cabinet officials.
I do not.
Said,
the cope that they come up with is that Donald Trump represents a threat to the establishment that's very vague. He's going to go in there and drain the swamp. Didn't do it the first time, but he's going to go in there the second time around. This time it's real. This time it's serious. He's going to go in there and drain the swamp and attack the establishment, and therefore the establishment. And then they just throw anybody who's ever criticized Trump into this basket of the establishment. Okay, if you've ever criticized Trump, guess what? You're the establishment now. And then they use that to writ large invalidate any and all criticism of Donald Trump. They just dismiss it as, oh, it's a coordinated attack because he represents a threat to them and what they believe in. It's just it's foolish. It's like the logic of a child to simplify to that extent. To try to oversimplify incredibly complex dynamics in the body politic. There's like 100,000 competing interests in the private sector and in DC and in state governments and in local governments, and they all intersect and conflict with each other and sometimes combine and form alliances. But it's all just infinitely complex. But if you're Trump, all you got to do is just say like, oh, it's the establishment, and we're going to attack the establishment. And he's dumbing it down because his supporters are stupid. They don't understand complexity. They don't understand nuance. And so he is marketing his message to cater to people that are idiots.
Right. Yes. Okay. Okay. So let me ask you a question. I believe that I do not trust Donald Trump. I think he's not an honest person. He's a self-promoter who will say whatever makes him look good. I believe that when Donald Trump said all of this rhetoric about drain the swamp in 2016, when he said we're not going to fight these wars anymore, when he, maybe somewhat unwittingly, called out Obama and John Brennan for the literal treason that they committed in Syria, with a capital T, arming and funding the enemy in wartime, okay? When he said Obama created ISIS, things like that, I think he made a lot of enemies in Washington, D.C. And the idea that you could get 5 or 10 of them to come.
Well, it's insane because ISIS, I believe, got its start in like the late 90s. So it just doesn't make any sense.
Come together and all say something bad about him.
That was one of the stupidest moments in any of the debates. One of the debates that he had with Hillary, he accused Hillary Clinton of inventing ISIS.
Doesn't.
Okay, fine. Doesn't.
Dave,
I don't believe them either.
Dave, you're a smart guy. Let me just put it to you, just very simply. If I'm Mike Pence, am I not voting for Donald Trump because my family almost got killed or because Trump was in Syria? I'm going to take the simple answer that he's not supporting Trump because he saw that Trump did on January 6th. Well, that's my point. You can go down the list. I could be here all day telling you about former Trump officials who have turned on him. They can't all be lying.
Yeah, they can. Actually, I mean, they can. By definition, they could.
All of them are lying and Trump's telling the truth.
It's not
a law. It sounds insane.
Well, no, I don't. It's not a law of logic that they couldn't all be lying. Yes, you could get a bunch of people in D.C. together to lie. That's that. How do you think we got in Iraq, right? You got a lot of people in D.C. together to lie.
Let me just say.
This is the reality.
Hang on.
To support Donald Trump is that every single person is lying, but not Trump. This is the time that he's telling the truth. This is the game that's played.
Yes, it is what you said. Yes, it is what you said. You said it was possible that everybody else is lying and Trump's the only one that's telling the truth. You just said that was possible. You didn't necessarily say it was the case, but you said it was possible, which is insane. Sorry.
But Destiny, what you...
Hang on. Wait, I'm just curious. One question. Is there one other person with this track record of people around him that say he's a bad guy that you would support? Can you think of a single person with even half as many people that have worked closely with him? All of his personal people before elections, people like Michael Cohen, people like... how many people in his campaign were arrested and then he...
Bro, this is so cathartic for me. I love watching Destiny and Mehdi cook together. Oh my God, what an incredible duo. My God. Like, they're so complimentary because they both have very similar styles. Like, they don't let people get away with saying with crazy shit. Like, they make an incredible team.
He pardoned immediately. People.
And poor Dave Smith. Poor Dave Smith. Number one, Dave Smith is like, he's just a libertarian, so he's just by default like a silly human being. And number two, his debate partner is Sarah Palin. Who assembled this panel? Like, this is just a bloodbath.
Like Manafort, people like Bannon, like any one other person, just one person.
Destiny.
One person.
I'm going to say one thing to you, which is this, which is, notwithstanding all your blind fury, you two, about
it's not blind. It's very. We're seeing clearly.
I would say though, what's fascinating to me is the moment I try and turn it back and say, yeah, but hang on, what about the rhetoric from your side?
So give me the rhetoric.
Oh my God.
Hitler, the Nazis.
He's just repeating himself. They've already addressed this point. They've already sufficiently addressed this point. And Piers is so desperate to look competitive in this conversation, he's just repeating the same point that they've already addressed.
Madison Square Garden is
Piers,
19...
you said Hitler. We've done this before in July. Let's
Literally,
play the game
Hillary
again.
Clinton just said this was 1939 all over again.
The rally.
The rally. A Nazi-style rally.
It is a
She's
Nazi-style
calling
rally.
Trump supporters
I do think it's a Nazi-style
Nazis.
rally. Yes,
So you
it is a
do.
horror.
So you do think he's the new Hitler.
Hold on. A Nazi-style rally does not mean you're the new Hitler.
What does it mean?
By the way,
what does
Trump,
it mean?
Hold on, you do this every time. Trump called
The
Biden.
Nazis were his party.
Is Joe Biden the Gestapo?
Huh?
Is Joe Biden the Gestapo?
What's that got to do with it?
I'm asking the question. Is Joe Biden the Gestapo?
I'm asking you. If it's
I'm asking
if it's a Nazi rally, why is he not the new Hitler?
Piers, is Joe Biden the Gestapo?
Who's running these new Nazis?
Is Joe Biden the Gestapo?
What's it got to do with it?
I'm asking you a question. Do you think Joe Biden...
Obviously, Donald Trump called him that. So
I'm asking the questions. It's my debate.
Well, okay. Well, then let me just point out to you.
Answer my question first.
I will. Joe Biden was called the Gestapo by Trump. I've never heard you criticize Trump for calling Biden Nazi. Why?
I thought we weren't supposed to do whataboutism.
Exactly.
it's not whataboutism.
Exactly.
It's not whataboutism. They've already addressed the substance of what Piers said. They've already addressed it. It's whataboutism if you're trying to sidestep addressing the substance of what somebody just said by deflecting to something that you might find comparable. That would be whataboutism. It's not whataboutism if they've already addressed what you said.
By the way, I don't care. I think it's a legitimate point you're making.
By the way, he wasn't in the Gestapo. It's offensive. It's wrong. Okay.
Yeah,
but so is it equally offensive? But you think it actually genuinely was a Nazi rally?
Do you see the difference between saying that people say
that it was a Nazi-style
in terms of the rhetoric that I said?
So do
you think Kamala's Antichrist? Do you think Kamala Harris is the Antichrist?
Keep asking her the questions. Keep asking her.
Please, geez,
keep asking her.
I should be your mother and just shut you guys up. I'm not your mother. You're a grown man, and
Good luck with
I have
that.
respect for your ages, if nothing else. But listen, you did just say that it was a Nazi-type rally, meaning Nazi-style rally.
Yeah,
meaning
people get up and say outrageously.
So who's the leader of this group?
Meaning participants
Donald Trump.
are
Jesus Christ.
Nazi-style participants? Is
I'm
that
saying
the
people are cheering on far-right rhetoric. Do you know what the Great Replacement theory is?
The far right.
Do you know what the Great Replacement theory is?
Mehdi, what
No, I trade in facts. What
about all the Jews?
Bro, he keeps trying to bail them out. Why does Piers constantly try to bail them out? Why does he do this? I mean, we know why, but whatever.
It's in the audience that I saw. What about the Israel flags I saw?
Israel flag means what?
Well,
does
they
it
may
mean?
not be thinking he's the new
rabbis-
Hitler.
Do you know some of the most far-right politicians in Europe support Israel right now, including card-carrying anti-Semites across
Why
Europe?
would Jewish people go and watch the new Hitler and cheer him on?
Why did a Jewish speaker make lots of anti-immigrant racist remarks? I mean, this is ridiculous. Muslims and Jews. A Muslim guy endorsed Trump on Friday. Does that mean Trump is pro-Muslim? Come on, Piers, you're better than this.
No, I tell you what, you're better than this because when you say it was a Nazi rally,
I didn't say it was a
have
Nazi
to.
rally.
You did.
I didn't actually. I said it was a Nazi-style rally. There's a difference.
When you say the Nazi-style rally, you're calling Trump Hitler.
You asked him to elaborate, and then when he tries to elaborate, you just cut him off and go, why are you calling us Nazis? It's like, okay, if you're going to ask him the question, let him answer the question, right?
Oh, my God. Let me repeat myself. I'm repeating myself. I'm saying that I listened to a rally at which people said things that Nazis said. Do you deny that Joseph Goebbels talked about enemy of the people, that enemy within is a Hitler line?
Anyone who uses...
Adolf Hitler literally said, quite literally said, Germany is for Germans. And then Stephen Miller gets up there and says, Germany is for Germans only. And then Stephen Miller gets up there and says, America is for Americans only. I don't think that was a coincidence. Stephen Miller is a full-on Nazi that doesn't even subtly hide his power level.
So the phrase enemy of the people is a Nazi.
Not anyone. When Trump consistently uses Trump language, Hitler language, when he says poisoning the blood of the immigrants, was that coincidence as well? Even after he was told that's only from Mein Kampf and he said it again. Was that a coincidence?
But it was a Nazi rally to you.
Was that a coincidence?
Was it a Nazi rally?
No, it was a Nazi-style rally. People said absolutely neo-Nazi things.
So these people are capable
Piers,
of
you just want to
perpetrating
get
a
a
Holocaust.
gotcha line, and I want you to do with facts. Is a Great Replacement theory Nazi theory or not? No. Sorry, facts matter. You can't just say, I'm going to ask you about headline
You're
pictures.
missing my overall point, which is this.
It's not my fault that
my
you don't
point is that
understand what happened
you two are
yesterday.
very exercised about the...
I'm exercised by the fact that you don't deal in facts, Piers.
Mehdi,
The Great Replacement
let me get a
theory.
word in.
No. Great Replacement theory and
Yes.
neo-Nazi theory. Until you address that,
Yes.
I can't continue this conversation.
Let me come to Sarah. I want to move to a different thing.
This is how you deal with them. This is how you have to deal with them. You have to be so aggressive with these people. You can't give them an inch. Do not give them an inch. No quarter. None whatsoever.
You're not going to address the fact you think
you
they're
don't
Nazis.
know what the Great Replacement
You think
theory
they're a
is.
bunch of Nazis, but
Can I
don't
just
really
say
want to
one
say
thing?
it.
they're a
That
bunch of
watches both
Nazis.
of your shows. I love watching you guys do this to each other, because watching you guys do it to other people is infuriating, and when you guys go to each other, it's very funny. So
And I do it too.
It is true, though. You don't deal in fact when you talk about Trump, though. I agree with him.
No, I do. I'm very.
Well, what's the Great Replacement theory?
I actually
Why don't you tell your viewers?
You guys get
Why
mad
do you
about
tell
Trump
your
being
viewers?
compared to
Hang on.
Hitler.
I
Trump
know the
literally
Great
says,
Replacement
I want to
theory.
suspend the Constitution
I
if
don't
vote
agree-
fraud.
I don't
Trump
agree
literally
with the
says
Great
that the media
Replacement
are the enemy
theory.
of the people.
So why
Like,
was
these
it?
are-
Why was it echoed by Tucker Carlson and Don Jr. yesterday at the
But
rally?
I don't agree with you. What do you want me to say?
So you're
What a cop out. What an unbelievable cop out. Like, it's like blatant overlap. Like, great replacement theory, like, is full on Nazi shit. Like, you know, they want to replace you white people with like brown people to come in, and they're going to change the fabric of the country. And, you know, according to Trump, they're going to poison the bloodline of America. Like, it is completely fine to call this Nazi rhetoric.
Yeah, he said replace. Yes, Don Jr. was speaking. He said replace the immigrants coming to replace us.
Trump was on a softball question by Sean Hannity, and he said he'd be a dictator on day
Well,
one.
let me ask you
Hannity
about.
was teeing him up for a softball
all right,
question.
but let me ask you about illegal immigration then, Destiny. So we've seen an unbelievably large number of illegal immigrants come in during the Biden-Harris administration. Do you think this is right for America?
I don't think that Republicans think that illegal immigration is a problem right now. In fact, I'm 100% confident.
That wasn't my question.
The
I
issue,
said, do you think it's right
the issue,
that between
the issue,
7 and 10 million people
the reality
have
is,
come in illegally?
here are two facts that nobody will ever
is it
talk
right?
about. I'll tell you. Here are two facts that we do not have a problem right now with illegal immigration in the United States. We have a problem with asylum seeking. Okay, that's the number one. That's a huge thing. But number two, if this was such a huge problem, why were Republicans so content to pull the plug on it when Donald Trump said, "I need to leave the border open for me to run on this as an election issue"? You know what that tells me? That tells me it was never really a problem in the first place. It was just a talking point.
It's Trump's fault.
Definitionally. Wait. I gotta hear this. Do you understand? Do you agree that Donald Trump was the one that told them to pull the plug on the bill?
He said so.
Well, I don't think...
Wait. Do you agree that Donald Trump told them, do not vote yes on this bill?
I can try and answer.
Okay.
I don't think he should have been active in getting that bill approved.
Okay, you've just proved his point. You've literally just proved his point, because they can't possibly think that it's actually an emergency if Donald Trump was willing to keep the border, quote unquote, open. Like, it's just definitionally not. It can't possibly be an emergency to these people, which indicates that it's all just bullshit. Like, I think that there are good faith arguments to make, that to have concerns about our asylum program or whatever. I don't think being concerned about our border security makes you a Nazi. That's like crazy tanky stuff. Like, I think it's perfectly fine. But if you're going to say that it's an emergency and then also acknowledge that Donald Trump openly killed it for political reasons, then you're acknowledging tacitly, explicitly, you're explicitly acknowledging that it's not actually an emergency to these people, and they treat it like it's a political opportunity to capitalize on.
However, and I want to bring Sarah in on this, you cannot dispute there is a massive crisis at the southern border, nor can you dispute...
I'm shocked that you say that Republicans don't believe that the influence...
Because you didn't just follow his train of logic. Because you're so, like, Sarah Palin is... Like, to be clear, guys, Sarah Palin is one of... We talk about, like, stupid Republicans a lot. Like, Sarah Palin is legitimately dumber than Lauren Boebert. Like, it's bad. It's really bad. Some of you guys are too young to remember how bad it was with Palin. She is so stupid. She is, like, top 5 stupidest Republicans of the 21st century. It is so bad. She was pressed during an interview with, I can't remember, some famous news show host. What was her name? Katie Couric pressed her back in 2008 on what made her feel like she was qualified to deal with foreign policy issues, and specifically to deal with Russia. And she said, and I'm not kidding, she said, "You can see Russia from Alaska." Not a joke. I'm not making this up. I'm not hyperbolizing. That's a word. I'm not taking her out of context. In fact, why don't we show you the clip?
What insight into Russian actions, particularly in the last couple of weeks, does the proximity of the state give you?
They're our next door neighbors, and you can actually see Russia from land here in Alaska.
Okay, that wasn't Katie Couric. Okay, whatever. Maybe she originally asked the question. I'm not sure.
Influx of illegal aliens across our borders is not a problem.
Why
it is a problem.
Bill?
It is a problem, and I think it's not just Republicans who recognize that. Look at even the Democrat leaders of cities who are being overrun, their budgets being busted, trying to support the
and
illegals
they all supported the
who are
bill.
coming
They supported
in.
the bill.
not.
Do you not think blaming Trump for everything though is a bit lame?
I'm talking about
They were ready to vote on the bill, and then Trump said,
I am gonna lose my mind. Piers literally just conceded a moment ago that Trump killed the bill. And then 30 seconds later, Piers says, don't you think it's lame to blame Trump for everything? What a sniveling, dishonest piece of shit Piers Morgan is.
don't do it.
Let me bring in Dave.
Cruz, Langford, all these people said we were going to vote for the bill, and then Trump pulled the plug on it.
Where you've not said one critical thing about Donald Trump since it started.
Actually, what I was going to say to you before I got shouted over yet again on my own show, what I was going to say to you was,
I thought it was going to be Dave and Sarah versus me and Destiny, but apparently it's me and Destiny versus.
Literally, that's what's going on here. Dave Smith hasn't said anything in 10 minutes. Sarah Palin has probably said 4 sentences this entire time, and it's just Piers Morgan versus these two because these two are too stupid to try to defend their points.
Sarah and Piers.
You always like to do this, and it's not true.
I've not heard you say one critical thing about Trump.
When Trump was president, I wrote 110 columns for the Daily Mail about Trump. When he left, I counted negative, positive. It was about 50-50.
Great, but not today.
So I have been very, very critical of Trump, and I felt he's deserved it. Well, no, because I find that with you and with Jesse, with great respect to you guys, you absolutely love sticking it to him. When I try and stick it back to your own problems with your own party, you don't want to hear it.
Hey, Piers, I can assure you I wish that I hadn't heard a bunch of racist stuff last night. I'm just coming on the show to say I heard a bunch of racist stuff last night.
Dave, let me ask you this, Dave. Trump's most powerful part of his speech last night was his first line, where he said, let me start by just saying this. How many of you feel better off than you did 4 years ago? And they all do any of you? And they all shouted no. I can imagine millions of Americans.
I don't know about you guys. I can say with 100% authority, I am way better off now than I was in late October of 2020.
Americans at home who've had an extremely tough 4 years because of massive inflation and huge.
Like my life is like 100 times better than it was in late October of 2020.
Cost of living problems would all be shouting no as well. That, in the end, I suspect will win Trump the election. Nothing else. I suspect it's actually going to be, well, it'll be the failure to control the border, but it will be predominantly that people feel they are worse off than they were 4 years ago.
Well, I think the thing that
He's
really
not wrong about
undercuts
that.
this pitch from Donald Trump is that he really means 5 years ago. Yeah. You know, like Donald Trump has to run on the first 3 years of his administration and then go, hey, that whole 2020 thing really doesn't count because, like, we got hit with this virus and the Democrats would have done the same thing. Or
is it unreasonable, that position? Given it was a global pandemic.
Well, yes and no.
Given by common consent.
Okay, so
Deborah Birx estimated that 30 to 40% of the COVID deaths that America experienced in the final year of Trump's presidency were entirely preventable. Did you guys know that we rank 17th in the world for mortality rate with COVID? We were one of the worst off countries in the entire world in terms of how many people died of COVID per 1,000 people. We're not talking about total cases. We're talking about per capita, yes. We were one of the worst in the world, and it was largely driven by red states.
America performed better than most countries in the pandemic.
Well, it depends on how you measure.
It's just fundamentally untrue.
What did he just say?
And then go, hey, that whole 2020 thing really doesn't count because, like, we got hit with this virus and the Democrats would have done the same thing. Or
is it unreasonable, that position? Given it was a global pandemic.
Well, yes and no.
Given by common consent,
okay, so
America performed better than most countries in the.
What is he talking? If we're talking about the post-COVID economic recovery, yes, he's right about that. Who was president during that? That was Biden. If he's talking about like per capita deaths, we were one of the worst in the entire world. We were in the top 10%. We were in the
the pandemic.
Well, it depends on how you measure.
It's just fundamentally untrue.
It totally depends on how you measure.
Economically, it is believed America performed better than most countries.
We also recovered better, but Biden doesn't get credit for that.
Jeez, guys. I mean, I know it's like a week before an election, man, and everything's just got to get down to this tribal. Like, we got to win this point, man. But just for a second, I will say.
That's not what's going on here. You don't live in reality. That's why they're getting animated. That's why they're getting flustered. You're not addressing the points that they make. Like both Destiny and Mehdi Hasan have made several substantive claims and explained their logic in great detail. And nobody on this panel, including Piers, is engaging with the substance of what they're saying. They're deflecting to these straw man arguments, or they're deflecting to false equivalencies, or they're doing literal whataboutism.
That it's like, look, on one hand, what Donald Trump benefits from is the fact that the entire Democratic criticism of Donald Trump through 2020 was just that he didn't do more lockdowns and do more, you know what I mean? Like, and so they kind of don't get to say it, but he also doesn't really get. The truth is, 4 years ago from today, a lot of Americans were worse off than they are right now because they were recovering from lockdowns. There were people whose businesses were shut down.
That's why he said from the start of the administration.
In my opinion, if Donald Trump had been a great leader, had actually risen to the moment he was called to, and had gotten Fauci off that task force, and had been against lockdowns, and had kept somewhat of liberty going through that year, he'd be in a much stronger.
Donald Trump opposed lockdowns after like 2 weeks. After like 2 weeks, Donald Trump was pressuring the governors of all 50 states to reopen businesses. And something I didn't even think about at the time, which I think is, in retrospect, is kind of stupid that I didn't even think about this. Donald Trump had a personal incentive to keep all these states open. He had properties operating in dozens of states. Like, it didn't even occur to me at the time that there could be that Donald Trump might have been pressuring states to reopen so his businesses could keep making money. I don't even know how did I not even think about that at the time? In retrospect, it's so obvious that had to have factored into his thinking.
Yeah, the irony, Mehdi?
To say that.
The irony is that Trump in the pandemic actually behaved like a good old-fashioned authoritarian, and you lot screamed it wasn't authoritarian enough.
Well, listen, I will say, I do think, well, maybe not you.
Make up quotes
there were certainly a lot of people who were critical of that.
fundamentally on Fauci, of course. But that's a different
sure,
argument.
but that's a separate point. Now, for Donald Trump, what he can kind of get at is that, the first 3 years of his administration certainly were much better times for many Americans. I would say this, however.
Thanks, Obama. Thanks, Obama, for passing on a literal booming economy to Donald Trump. Thank you, Obama, for doing that.
I think in some ways Donald Trump is fortunate that he didn't win the election in 2020 because those years were going to be very tough years for the country. And now the Democrats,
he's literally the only conservative I've ever heard acknowledge this. I've never heard, I mean, he says he's a libertarian, so maybe we should make that distinction, but I've actually, props to him. I've never heard a conservative admit this. We were going to experience uncomfortable inflation regardless of who was president. That was happening in 2022, no matter what.
Economy in the G7.
Yes, depending on how you want to measure these things, I think they've been very difficult.
Consent, I think is the word.
Man, you guys just are like impossible.
I'm sorry, Dave.
How are you? But he's like, you just disputed that the United States had the best economic recovery in the G7. You just kind of mildly disputed it by saying depends on how you measure it. What are you even talking about? What would you point to say that we didn't have the best recovering economy in the G7?
So many bullshit facts. The United States is doing better than every OECD country, than every G7 country when it comes to inflation. And then you try to blame it on Biden.
I said one thing. No, it didn't. Destiny, I'm actually not trying to blame it on Biden. If you listen to what I said whoever was going to be in there was going to have. But that's what you hear because
even the things that you
can I win the point?
No, it's not about winning the point. Even when you say people were mad about Trump for not being an authoritarian enough, that's not true. People were mad about Trump because, one, he denied that COVID was even in the country for days or weeks until it was finally evident that we had to say something about it. And then, two, Donald Trump undermined his own health administration so much that the one thing that he wished he could take credit for that he tried to, which was warp speed for the vaccine, he couldn't even do it because his electorate wouldn't even believe that vaccines work.
Hang on.
Also, in the early days, he banned travel from China, but not Europe. It made no sense. It made no sense. There were thousands of people that were flying in to New York from Europe, and then guess what happened? New York ended up becoming the hotbed of the entire country. It was like ground zero for the pandemic.
Let me bring in Sarah.
Thank you.
Let me bring in Sarah.
You were making a point based on Trump's opening line, right? And I think you were going to make an interesting point, but you were interrupted.
The factual world drives us back so much, I know.
You mumbled an answer, though, when he said Trump asked the audience, are you better off today than you were? And you said, well, no.
They are better off today.
You're saying we are better off today?
Yeah, I know facts.
Really?
Don't
The
matter to you,
$33 trillion debt that we are...
You don't get to complain about the debt. Republicans have no right to complain about the debt. The deficit grew to its largest amount ever on Donald Trump's watch. Every single modern Democratic president reduced the deficit during their time in office. Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden. And the same will take place probably if Kamala wins.
Trajectory of this,
or at least that's what JP Morgan projects.
Debt too is it's going the wrong direction.
So hold on, Trump added more to the debt than any previous president.
I'm going to give you an example.
If we're just going to do 4 years.
Look at
Please
the
do, then I'll
inflation
respond.
rate.
Yep.
Look, go into a grocery store, see what it costs to buy a dozen eggs, to buy a pound of butter.
Ladies and gentlemen, it brings me no joy to tell you this. Sarah Palin, in many ways, is kind of like the median voter for a lot of states. That's just the reality. She reflects the median voter sentiment for a lot of people in this country. Okay, like she has nothing. Like she literally, all she has is just straight up like Fox News talking points. She is not intellectually capable of diving into the minutia of these subjects. She is not intellectually capable of any kind of nuanced, informed opinions. And she is, there's a lot of people in this country like her, like a lot. Again, Sarah Palin is dumber than Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Fuel up your truck. All these things.
But look at the polls. But look at the polls, by the way, which show the two biggest issues for American voters in this election by far
We're not better
are the
off
economy,
today.
cost of living, and immigration. And that is why, if Trump ends up winning, it will be on those two issues.
Can we agree for the first time in the show? I agree with you that the polling is bad on the economy. The Americans, the vibes are bad on the economy.
We're not better
But the
off
point
today.
Destiny made just now is that facts also matter. So, I thought it was a conservative line, facts don't care about your feelings. I don't care that Americans feel bad about the economy. The numbers are very clear. Every economist says the same thing. Every survey shows the same thing. Real wages are actually higher today than they were in September 2020. They are. Real wages are higher. Real wages, you know what real wages are? What do you mean not factoring? Real wages.
She doesn't know what real wages is. She has no idea that means like accounting for inflation. She has no idea.
Factoring inflation, Sarah Palin.
Yes.
That's what real wages are. Factoring inflation,
Exactly.
real wages are
Factoring,
higher today
and no,
than
they're
in
not.
September
No, they're
2020.
not.
In
Yes,
fact,
they are. Yes, they are. Yes.
wages have outstripped prices for the last 20 straight months.
Yes.
Household net worth is at a record high. Unemployment is at a 50-year low. We now have 6 million fewer people unemployed.
So why do the
than when
vast majority of
than when Trump was
Americans feel
president.
worse off?
Sorry?
Vibes. Sorry, it just is what it is. It's vibes. It's vibes and then anxiety because they don't want to experience that inflation again, which is fair. So it's anxiety about like what could possibly happen, and it's vibes. That's what's going on here. But Mehdi Hasan is 100% right. Real wages right now are right in line with pre-pandemic. It took us a while to get there. That's why we called it a soft landing. But we're there. We've landed. It was soft.
Are they all lying about
I think
being
inflation
worse
took a toll, huge toll.
So they are worse off.
But the inflation's now down, right?
No,
We're at the lowest inflation rate since
are they
February
worse off
2021.
then?
Yes.
No, because now real wages
They're
are
not.
up.
You just
No.
said you inferred they were.
Have prices decreased
First of all,
then?
it's
through-
first of all,
through the-
again-
She's so stupid! Oh my God. Esme's on a client call right now. Uh-oh. She works for an ad agency. So she has phone calls with like Microsoft about $2 million ad buys. And I'm over here screaming I got to tone it down a little bit, guys. What did she just say? I forgot what I'm upset about.
Worse off.
But the inflation's now down, right?
No,
We're at the lowest inflation rate since
are they
February
worse off
2021. No, because now real wages
They're
are
not.
up.
You just
No.
said you
Have
inferred they were.
Have prices decreased
First of all,
then?
it's
through-
Median voter. What she's asking for is like a catastrophe for the economy. For deflation is we've talked about it a bunch on the stream. Deflation.
I am untethered and my rage knows no bounds.
Deflation causes death spirals for economies. Death spirals. They will kill economies. You don't want prices to tumble across the board. You want what Mehdi Hasan is talking about. You want real wage growth. That's what you want. You want wages to outpace inflation. But she is the median voter. They want like all the prices of like movie tickets and clothes and like inelastic goods. They want the prices for these things to go down, and which would straight up plunge this country into a Great Depression. It would kill our economy.
First of all, again, I agree that Americans are upset about prices. I'm upset about prices. But it was a global problem, was it not? Did you not just say the pandemic was a global
Mehdi,
problem?
why would they
was
be
inflation not a global problem?
Why would they be upset about prices if they're not worse off?
Because they were. Hold on. In 2022, when we hit record high levels of inflation, if I'd sat on your show...
It wasn't record high, just to be clear. The rates of inflation were higher in the late 70s and the 80s.
And they still feel worse off today.
We still have that inflation. It's cumulative. It's year-over-year. It adds
So they
up.
are worse off then.
No, that's one factor. Prices are just one thing. Wages are another thing. Net worth is another thing.
I already conceded. Do people feel worse off? Yes, but the numbers say something else.
So
do you understand?
they're all completely deluded.
Yeah, people not deluded, but people. You think the public know everything about everything?
Underestimating the wisdom of the people.
Oh no, ma'am, you have demonstrated his point better than he could. You yourself, Sarah Palin, has demonstrated his point better than in any way that he could have made that point. Because you have no idea what you're talking about, and it's just obvious. You have no idea what you're talking about.
You can look at the YouGov polls. You can see.
And by the way, since Joe Biden was running
the Republican
for office,
Party itself is all about feelings.
So this has actually been the official Democratic line, which is that this is a great economy. They were saying this back this summer when Joe Biden was in. It's a great economy. All of the numbers show it. All of the economists say it. But there's this problem where people just don't agree.
They don't
people
understand.
are so stupid.
They don't know. They're actually better off.
Let me
Everybody on this panel, except for Sarah Palin, everybody on this panel understands that like the median voter is wildly uninformed. But he's going to pretend like he's above all that. He's going to pretend like he doesn't judge them just the same as Mehdi Hasan and Destiny and Piers.
Let me get a sentence out here. Listen, as you guys kind of just alluded to there, look, the problem with inflation is that it is cumulative. And so
I'm not going to say that like the median American is stupid. I genuinely don't believe that. I believe that intelligence manifests in so many different ways. Like I have no idea how to change the oil on my car or whatever. That requires a degree of intelligence. I have no idea how to draw like a photorealistic picture, right? Like somebody could be uninformed politically and they can demonstrate intelligence in myriad ways, right? So I think the capacity for people to be intelligent and informed is there. It just takes a bit of education. So I'm not going to say that people are stupid. I'm going to say that people are just wildly uninformed. And then you have some people like Sarah Palin who are like aggressively stupid.
Even though the inflation rate has come down, that's just adding to the prices.
Correct.
And people have been absolutely destroyed over the last 3.5 years over this price inflation. It is literally everybody I know has felt the pressure of it. Even people who make like really good
nobody is disputing this.
Money. It's been
nobody is disputing this. And am I crazy, or did Dave Smith not like 10 minutes ago say that this inflation was going to happen no matter what? Did he not imply that inflation was going to happen if Trump was president as well?
Very, very difficult. I do not think this is something that is at the lays at the feet of one party or the other. The truth is that Donald Trump in the year 2020, not all Trump, but his government locked down the economy and added $6 trillion.
Dave Smith, like Donald Trump did not lock down the economy. I don't even know what that means. Did he just memory hole 2020? Is he just making shit up? Because I recall Donald Trump, it took like, what was it, 2-3 weeks before Donald Trump was like, we got to open back up. Got to get the kids back to school. Got to get the economy ripping and roaring again. Got to open it back up. It was like 3 weeks, and he was like, it's going to be gone by Easter. It's going to be gone by Easter. First of all, unless Donald Trump wanted to impose martial law, I don't think Donald Trump had the authority to tell businesses in individual states that they had to close down. Maybe there's some authority that I'm unaware of, but that is like a states' rights thing. That falls on governors and mayors, and yeah.
$1 million to the money supply in the year 2020. That was going to result in some price inflation. But Biden then in 2021 came in. They kept the money printing going. But they kept
Libertarians only want to point to like printing money. They only want to talk about that when it comes to inflation. They don't want to talk about like supply chain issues.
I'm not denying there was inflation problems around the globe. I'm saying we're talking about America right now. This is something that is now.
They go hand in hand, right? Like, but they only want to talk about like the money printing stuff.
The politics of it are that the actual price inflation pretty much all fell on Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's watch, and that's very difficult to get yourself out.
Can I just say one point about these things
about
you
wrong
said
about
facts
that.
and feedback? I can prove to you that Americans are not doing this as some kind of rational calculation. I can prove it to you. If the Americans people really cared about inflation and prices, that's their number one.
Why is luxury spending like at where it was pre-pandemic? Like, why are just as many Americans taking vacations now than they were in 2019? Why are just as many Americans spending $30 on like a DoorDash order from Taco Bell? If we're literally like approaching a recession, if people are hurting that much, why are people spending a shitload of money?
One issue, then they would vote Harris. Because every single economist, 95% of economists, according to a University of Chicago survey, say they will pay higher in tariffs. Tariffs will bring up inflation. Every serious economist in this country... No, Piers, you're missing the point, because if inflation is your number one issue...
my point.
Because you didn't let me finish mine, you jumped in. If inflation is their number one issue, then they should be voting for Harris. Okay. That proves that inflation's not their top issue.
Here's the problem. The problem is that the reality of the inflation issue, as you've all basically admitted, is that inflation, by very definition, is increasing prices even if the rate comes down. So Americans are paying consistently, month by month by month, for the entire Biden-Harris administration.
You don't need to explain it. Why do you feel the need to explain this? Why are you talking as if this is like some esoteric concept that's flying over Mehdi? Look at Mehdi's response. Like, why are you explaining this? This is what inflation is. You don't need to explain this.
They're paying more when they go to the grocery store.
But their wages have gone up too, Piers. This is a key part of economics.
But the
real wages have gone up.
But the vast majority of working class people in America
their wages have gone up.
They feel worse off. And that is going to... ultimately is going to resonate at the bottom.
Nobody is... I don't even understand what the argument is about at this point, because I don't think anybody on the panel besides, like, let's just completely disregard Sarah Palin for the rest of this conversation, because she is not a factor in this conversation. She's like an actual moron. But nobody... I don't feel like anybody on the panel disagrees that the economy is a liability for Democrats. Nobody is disputing this. Destiny's not disputing this. Dave Smith is not disputing this. Everybody's on the same page. Like, he's highlighting and illuminating on something that he doesn't need to. He's just saying obvious things.
I really disagree. at the very beginning I said I take your point about feelings. Yeah. I'm just saying facts show that they're better off. If you want to answer the question Trump asked honestly, people are better off today.
Let's turn to war. Because that should calm down.
Oh my God,
the debate.
Oh God,
Destiny,
we're screwed.
Look, obviously it's a pretty consequential election in many ways, but not least, I would argue, for the fate of people in Gaza and Ukraine and other hotspots around the world. Where are we with these? I mean, it's quite interesting to me that for the first time I can remember, you have a body of Republicans who do not want to back, say, Ukraine against a Russian dictator that illegally invaded their country. I remain very perplexed and surprised that is the view, and Sarah, we can come to you for why that may be, but that is the case. If Trump was to win, he says he'll fix it all in 24 hours. I don't think he will, but he will try and do a deal. The question is, what is that deal? Because Ukraine are saying they're not going to give up an inch of the land.
The deal is they're going to force Ukraine to accept land grabs, Russian land grabs. Well, that's what every single like isolationist and conservative, like quote unquote anti-war conservative, they're not anti-war. They're pro surrender. That's what they're talking about. They're talking about like let Russia violently, if needed, just go in there and just like steal 3 big regions of Ukraine. Gulmak TV, thank you so much for the primer. Kamikaze with 2 months. Good stash. Thank you so much.
So the issue is that Donald Trump is a 4-year-old when it comes to understanding any issue, but especially foreign policy. And a lot of people have this, they're obsessed with this idea of peace in their mind, which if you're in conflict, peace is the furthest thing from your mind. You want some kind of just peace or justice, right? So Trump's solution for Ukraine is just give up the land that's been taken from you and everything will be kosher, just like Russia did in Moldova with Transnistria, just like Russia did with South Ossetia and I can't even pronounce the other place in Georgia, and just like Russia's trying to do now with Ukraine. If you're somebody that wants, justice for Ukraine, or you want the United States to remain a world leader when it comes to, ensuring trade routes or being somebody that the world looks to ensure relative peace and freedom and stability throughout places like Europe, which it has enjoyed historically more in the past 30 years than it had in the 200 years prior to that, Donald Trump obviously is not going to do that for you. If you're somebody who's very concerned about the Israeli-Gaza conflict, I mean, you've got Donald Trump, who wholeheartedly, he said it before, will support Israel basically no matter what, with absolutely, no contention whatsoever. You've got a guy who agreed to moving the embassy, who before that was talking about pulling all of the UNRWA funding from the Gaza Strip, who would support Netanyahu through and through. The whole reason why those Abraham Accords started was because Netanyahu wanted to start annexing parts of the West Bank, right? Donald Trump is not going to help any of the Palestinians if that's something that you're concerned about. Insofar as peace in the Middle East, I mean, you've got this talking point over and over again, no new wars, no new wars. Yeah, again, we haven't had any new wars since World War II, right? The war in Iraq was the use of force authorization, the authorization of the use of force. It wasn't technically a war.
Well, it was,
Trump,
it was a war.
You can call it that, but Donald Trump bombed Syria. Donald Trump bombed Syria. That wasn't a war, apparently. Yeah, with no congressional authorization. Iran attacked Saudi Arabia. They did a drone strike on oil refineries. There was conflict all throughout Iraq and Syria. Donald Trump abandoned.
This rewriting of history that MAGA idiots do when it comes to Trump's presidency, where they just pretend. They just delusionally convinced themselves that we had world peace when Donald Trump was president. Like, it is dumbfounding. Like the hoops that they jump through. You would have to be so aggressively uninformed to believe something so stupid that we had world peace under Donald Trump. You would have to have been completely checked out of the news and politics and whatever for the entire 4 years of Trump's presidency to believe something so stupid.
And Kurdish allies in Syria, Donald Trump signed a deal with the Taliban and essentially forfeited Afghanistan, and there was the whole fallout from that. Like
every time, maybe it's the right way of saying it, but every time Destiny says Taliban, he says Taliban. Is that the right way to say it? Is he saying it right? Everybody else is saying it wrong?
This idea that there was peace in the Middle East under Donald Trump is absolutely ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense.
Look, I actually think Trump's foreign policy was a lot some people give him credit for.
What was effective about it?
Well, there's not. Look, I mean, it's not. There's some truth in there mixed with some just like attempts to get Donald Trump. Look, when people say there were no new wars under Donald Trump, there is. First of all, I'll say at least that's the talking point. At least that's what they're going with, rather than going, he killed all them terrorists or something like that, which would have 20 years ago would have been the talking point from people on the right wing. So that's at least better. But the reason why they wouldn't consider him bombing Syria a new war is because Obama had us already in that conflict since 2012.
When he reneged on his red line.
Yes. Now listen. By the way, there are
Assad used chemical weapons, and Obama did nothing, and Putin came in and took control. Well, that's what happened.
Okay. Yes. Anyway, yes.
Sebastian Noyes, thank you so much for 2 months, buddy.
Here's what happened.
Well, actually, if you want to really look at what happened in 2012, because the war, and I know you know about this stuff, because the war in Iraq had been such a disaster, and the power had been handed back to the Shiites in the region, and Iran had more influence than they had in the history of the regime, then it really started under George W. Bush, but then continued into Obama. They did what they called the redirect, where now we were going to try to take the Shiites down a peg, who we had just put in power in Iraq. And so what we wanted to do was overthrow Bashar al-Assad, and so we started funding all of the anti-Assad rebels, which largely consisted of Al-Qaeda and ISIS, and they knew this. Anyway, it wasn't like during Obama inherited these 2 wars in Iraq and Afghanistan.
I'm not qualified to fact check any of this, so I'll let chat. You guys can do all the fact checking you want.
And said he was going to end at least the one in Iraq. He then spread wars to Libya, Syria, Yemen. Somalia had already been going since George W. Bush was in there. You didn't see that under Donald Trump. You didn't see. However,
you saw a massive escalation when Donald Trump took office. Massive escalation. When I say massive, I mean massive. During Obama's time in office, they adopted a policy of voluntarily reporting civilian casualties as a result of drone strikes, for example. That started under Barack Obama. During Donald Trump's first year, just in Somalia, he killed more civilians because of drone strikes in Somalia in his first year than Obama did in his entire 8 years. And in fact, the problem got so bad that Donald Trump, his administration, just decided to end that policy of self-reporting civilian casualties. So we actually don't even know how many people died after that fact.
He did disagree.
In 2016, he ran on this top secret plan to get rid of ISIS. And when he was pressed on the plan, he would say things like, well, I'm not going to tell you, that would be stupid. I would be, giving advance notice to my enemies and blah, 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 blah. And then when he took over, within like a couple weeks, he unveiled that his master plan was to give the generals a month to come up with a plan. That was his plan. He assembled the generals and all the top members, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and he said, I'm going to give you guys a month, give me a plan. And what'd they come up with? They just, drop a load of bombs. They dropped a Moab in Afghanistan, for Christ's sakes.
Yes, if you let me finish the sentence, then sure, we'd get there. However, he did escalate the war in Afghanistan, which he said himself was unwinnable, and so he escalated the war in Afghanistan, not like Obama with 70,000 plus troops there, but he did send thousands extra troops. He did take off the gloves with drone strikes and rules of engagement. So the idea that he was like an anti-war president is not true.
Okay,
there was rhetorically he was very different than previous presidents, and he would at least talk about the idea that these wars were disasters, that we never should have fought them, and that really America shouldn't be involved in that business.
Also,
I'm glad that he's at least infusing that into the popular
I do think
conversation.
he came at it with an overview as a business guy. It's just bad business. These wars were costing trillions of dollars cumulatively to get nowhere, really. What's your assessment of Trump on the foreign stage?
And
Bunda says, did Hutch just say he's not qualified to fact check any of this? What a load of crap. If you're going to commentate, then make sure what your audience is hearing is true. Listen, it's kind of a bold thing to say. Like, if I feel like I'm outside of my wheelhouse, like I don't know enough about the Syrian conflict to fact check stuff. I can fact check most of what this conversation is I've been doing that this entire time, but there's one part of the conversation that I'm a little bit out of my depth. I don't know a lot about the Syrian conflict.
There's huge conflicts of interest also with this war machine that our country has seemed to have embraced and allowed to perpetuate. I'm voting for Trump because I hate war. And I don't know if any of you, I hate that it's the old men who call for wars and they send our young men to go fight the
She ran on extending the war in Iraq in 2008. You know, McCain was talking about like finishing the job and making sure that America doesn't suffer a humiliating loss and you know, doubling down on Iraq, and that's what she ran on in 2008. So this idea that she's voting for Trump because he's against war, again, it just bears repeating. She is not intellectually capable of having this conversation, because now for the last 15 minutes they've been talking about the fact that Donald Trump wasn't actually anti-war. It's kind of a silly thing to say. Even the no new wars thing is like very dubious. But the idea that Donald Trump was against war is just absurd. They just spent the last 10-15 minutes talking about that, and in comes Sarah Palin with just this silly talking point, and that's all she has. All she has is literally just rehearsed talking points. That's it. She can't engage in the substance of any of this stuff.
For them, our young men and our young women. And, you know, all politics are personal. I don't know if any of you have a real personal connection with those who have been sent to war zones. And then the guys, the gals, they come back different people. They're adversely affected. On a personal level here, I will do whatever I can, and I will support whatever candidate needs support in order to avoid war. Why I will not support Kamala is she doesn't understand, for one, that inherent link between energy development, energy independence in America, and that inherent link between that and our safety and our sovereignty. And because Kamala and because the Democrat Party...
Oh my God, she is so out of her depth here, guys.
Has put an end to so much of our exploration, certainly so much of our development of our own natural resources.
Isn't America producing more energy today than we have in all of history?
No, we're not. And
that's not true? We're not?
No, we're not. And
okay.
Remember, Kamala...
No, press her on that, please, please, please. Just be ruthless with her.
And her administration...
We are currently, right now, in this moment, quote unquote, energy independent. We are a net exporter of oil. We are producing more domestic oil than at any point in our country's history. She's just like, Republicans are too stupid to know this. They have no idea. Like, if you ask the average Republican,
You're very special.
I honestly think that if you took like 1,000 random Trump supporters and you asked them how much oil we're producing in America right now, I'll bet you probably like 75% of them think that the number is zero. I really believe that. I think probably 75% of Trump supporters think that we are not drilling any oil right now. They think that all oil production stopped the second that Biden canceled the Keystone XL pipeline extension. I really think it would be like 75%. And I think it would be single digits in terms of Trump supporters that know that we're producing more oil now than at any point in Trump's presidency. Like maybe 3-4%.
Day one, they stopped pipelines, no more drilling on federal land.
So we look up.
There it is. She's doing the thing. Right there. She's doing it right there.
America's not producing energy. You ran with McCain. You said you care about veterans and everything. Did Trump's comments about McCain bother you at all? Did Trump prefers people that didn't get captured?
Oh my God. Why didn't I see that coming? Oh my God. I didn't even see that coming. Oh my God, Destiny. That was amazing.
I've never said anything negative about McCain or any.
I didn't ask if you said it. I asked if Trump's comments bother you about that.
Anyway,
when Trump made fun of that Gold Star family for their child, did that bother you?
They
bother me. I wrote a column criticizing him heavily for it.
Cares about vets. I had two parents who served in the Air Force. I'm just curious, if you cared about vets, did these comments bother you? When Trump tried to go to Arlington and do a photo op there.
If I care about vets,
yeah, if you do, did these comments bother you?
If I care about vets.
If you cared about vets, I'm asking, do these comments bother you?
Between energy and prosperity.
Oh my God. She's like 75 levels beneath everybody on this panel. This is so embarrassing.
Talk about whether or not Trump's comments about McCain
You interrupted the point that I was going to make.
Because you're not making any points. These are political talking points. Are we running for office in here?
Really? Really?
You did run.
Oh my God. This is such phenomenal content. Oh my God. Like we have reached like the zenith of content in this election cycle with this video. This is amazing. Destiny taking Sarah Palin to task on Piers Morgan is incredible.
For office, by the way, you ran with John McCain, the most warmongering man that we know of. Why did you run with John McCain?
The point to make. No,
why did you run with John McCain if you're anti-wars?
To make a positive difference in our country.
But he would have sent more people to die.
You don't know that.
I do.
Oh my God. Somebody called this in chat. Somebody called this cathartic. That is the perfect word for this.
Actually, he said bomb, bomb, bomb Iran. He sang it.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
he sang it. He did campaign.
He campaigned on a war platform.
100 years in Iraq.
He campaigned on staying in Iraq 100 years and bombing Iran.
You're asking why I accepted the nomination to
I'm just wondering, you're sitting here saying you're against war abroad, and yet I just want to remind younger viewers at home, you ran with the most warmongering senator of my lifetime.
And you're asking why I ran for vice president of the United States of
America.
America.
I know why you ran. You wanted power. I'm just saying why you're not consistent.
I mean, to be fair to Palin, Vance accepted the nomination, and he said that Trump could be America's next Hitler. So I mean, you know.
All right, why don't we try and be a little fairer to the ex-governor, because she's on her own here getting attacked by three brutal males.
Don't bail her out. What are you doing? This is a grown woman. She's like 150 years old. Don't let the Botox fool you, okay? How old is she? She's 60. Never mind. I take it back. That was mean.
I wanted to talk about energy and America's
finish your point.
What you said was false about energy. Facts matter too. America has record energy production right now.
No.
It does.
What's
People
false?
can Google it right now
when
and see
I
they don't
said that on day one, what the Biden administration did was halt so much of our exploration
and yet we have record energy
and our construction of pipelines. And
I'm not a fan of that, by the way. I think we should have less energy production. I'm a critic of Biden on his energy production.
You're a liar. You lied.
I'm a liar.
Yes, and you said, no, Biden didn't do that. Yes, he did on day one.
Do you know he handed out more licenses to Trump? Do you know that?
I'm making the point that you denied. My point is true.
Destiny said energy's higher, and you said no. So if anyone lied, you did.
Listen.
People can DVR it, they can rewind it and see you saying a false statement.
Let me ask this question.
Energy production higher. Is energy production higher today?
You don't think that Biden
is energy production higher under Biden than Trump?
And you just
is
lied
energy production higher, Sarah Palin? It's a very simple question. I know
do
facts are not your strong point. Is energy production higher today under Biden than under Trump? It's a simple yes or no question.
You're an obnoxious.
See, but
Oh my God. This is so amazing.
I don't care about your feelings.
Are Americans wrong when they have this feeling? Well, the feelings
I'm
oftentimes are
obnoxious
generated
because I asked you if energy production's higher today than under Trump.
You're
that makes me
obnoxious
obnoxious
because I'm asking you why you would say that Biden
I'm obnoxious.
didn't thwart.
You're a racist. We want to play that game? You said Obama is not born in America. He's not one of us.
I said that?
Yeah, you said Trump is doing a great job asking for his birth certificate.
I said that?
You said he's not one of us. You said.
Hold on. Let's fact check. Sarah Palin, Obama, birth certificate. Sarah Palin has apparently joined the ranks of the birthers. In an interview with conservative talk radio host Rusty Humphreys, Palin said it is, quote, fair game politically to ask Obama to produce his long-form birth certificate to prove he's eligible to be president. Sarah Palin said, I appreciate that Donald wants to spend his resources on something that so interests him and many Americans. You know, more power to him, regarding Trump asking for Obama's birth certificate.
Said he jives and schmucks. Should we go down the record? You're going to call me obnoxious? Why don't you talk about your racism?
Yeah.
Why don't we talk about your racism?
Why do you change the subject?
You said Black Lives Matter protesters are dogs. Should we go down?
I said they're dogs.
All right,
You're
hang
a
on.
liar.
All right.
Let's fact check. Sarah Palin called Black Lives Matter protesters dogs. During a speech outside the U.S. Capitol to a Tea Party rally Wednesday, Sarah Palin used very loaded words to describe Black Lives Matter protesters. She called them dogs. Actually, dogs that President Obama won't call off. So Palin told the crowd she would instead offer her support and salute to the country's police officers. Interesting.
All right,
Show me where I ever said that protesters
It's funny you didn't deny the about. You say Obama's shuck and jive.
You're a liar.
Mehdi, if you get the governor on your show, which is, I would say, unlikely.
Shuck and jive. Let's see. Sarah Palin. Former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin is blasting critics who considered her use of the phrase shuck and jive about President Barack Obama to be racially inflammatory. She said, quote, "I would have used the exact same expression if I had been writing about President Carter, whose foreign policy rivaled Obama's in its ineptitude, or about the Nixon administration, who was famously rocked by a cover-up." Wow. Damn, she picked the wrong fight with him, man. Mehdi Hasan is a shark, bro. Like, I largely overlap with Mehdi Hasan. We agree on most things. There's some things that we disagree on, but we agree most of the time. But one thing you can say about, or one thing that you can't say about him, whether or not you like him, whether or not you hate him, whether or not you love him, you can't say that he's not like, he is an animal in this kind of a setting. Honestly, his style is very similar to Destiny's, to be honest with you. They're very complementary of each other. Mehdi Hasan is just one of the best people. If you want to see a world leader get grilled, Mehdi Hasan's going to be on like the top 3 that you would hire to do something like that.
Likely as things stand. If you do, you can
look at him. Oh, and then look at the confidence too. He adjusts his tie.
Said that
it's funny you didn't deny the about. You say Obama's shuck and jive.
You're a liar.
Mehdi, if you get the governor on your show, which is, I would say, unlikely as things stand.
Look at that. Look at that. Oh my God. And he does it with style too. It's amazing.
You can continue the prosecution. Let me just segue to this though, because it's interesting.
I called people dogs who were protesting in America. You're a liar.
Did you?
She did. We just looked it up.
Did you question Obama's birth?
Oh my goodness!
Did you say he's not one of us?
You know,
did you say he's palling around with terrorists?
Based on that, we're talking about Bill Ayers at the time and how Obama had kicked off.
You're standing by Obama's with terrorists.
Oh my goodness! I can't believe
you
even
say
have
he's not one of us?
If you.
Did you say Obama's not one of us?
I still want to know this proof that you have of me calling protesters in America dogs.
I believe you referred to Black Lives Matter protesters that way.
If believe I'm wrong, you are wrong.
All right, we'll fact check after this. I want to ask you this, Mehdi, because you're being very vocal.
She did.
And taking on.
She did. She called BLM protesters dogs. She absolutely did.
Sorry, Palin.
I mean, I got called obnoxious for pointing out energy production levels.
I don't think you would win a court case about not being obnoxious. But let's move on. Let's move on.
Biden not thwarting
I can also be obnoxious before you just play the what a battery. Let me just ask you this, though. Given that you believe Trump is, a racist who's holding neo-Nazi style.
Hopefully they don't ask Destiny about what he said about protesters. To be fair, Destiny was not talking about protesters. He was talking about rioters, and it came out as protesters, but whatever.
Rallies and so on.
I don't co-sign what he said, for the record. I'm gonna take the brave stance and say he was a little too edgy there.
Why is it that he's gaining significant ground with black and Latino voters? Why would they gravitate to a man who is literally, in your eyes, the new version of a Nazi?
It's a good question. I think because minority communities are not monoliths. I'm having the same issues in my own Muslim community where a lot of Muslims, not a lot, but some Muslims are actually going to vote for Trump because they're upset about Gaza. They think he's the peace candidate. And I think people have different reasons. I think we can make generalizations about entire communities. I'm not going to make generalizations about black
incredible. You have the
Latino voters.
Rioters burning businesses in the middle of the night as dip protesters, and you're against that? I'm saying that I'm saying what he said when he said, if it takes redneck militias coming in to mow them down, then so be it. I don't co-sign that. But I'm not trying to have a conversation about this. Was 4 years ago, and this has been litigated ad nauseum.
Although I think it's slightly exaggerated. I
think probably in retrospect, even he would say that he went too far on that one.
ABC poll that came out on Sunday.
You have a woman.
Yeah, there's an ABC poll that came out on Sunday that shows Harris is doing better with black and Latino men than Joe Biden did in 2020.
But the significant thing, Dave, is that his Trump's own popularity with black and Latino voters is significantly increased.
What is that popularity? Yeah. What are the numbers that we talking here? Are we going from 11% to 17%?
I think I read on African Americans, it's something like from about 4 or 5% to nearly 20%. That's significant.
Listen, I will bet anybody. Does anyone want to bet me $20,000 that Donald Trump does not get 20% of the black vote?
It depends on what polls you look at, and again, like we'll figure out in, well, I guess it might take us a few weeks before we have this data, but we'll see what actually ends up happening on the election day. There is something very interesting about the fact that if you look at the aggregate of the polls, Trump's support amongst minorities seems to be going up. There is, at least on the surface, that seems kind of funny given how he's being covered in the corporate media. I really do think that a lot of the there's kind of like the progressive cultural worldview is often very disconnected from what people in these communities actually care about.
That's actually true.
I think the fact that I think personally there's actually a lot of things that appeal to certain people in these communities that Donald Trump, just in his personality.
He's talking about social conservatism. Black voters, like the median black voter and the median Hispanic voter is going to be well to the right of like the median liberal progressive on social issues.
But I really do think that if you ask them, it all is coming down.
I want to say there was it Prop 8? There was a proposition in California to legalize gay marriage back in, I don't remember when. I think it was like the early 2000s. I'm going to say 2004 or 5. I'm just going to make it up. And I believe 90% of black voters in California voted against that bill, that measure at the time. Of course, that was 20 years ago. We've made a lot of progress since then, like a lot. But it is true that black voters and Hispanic voters typically are a little bit more socially conservative than people realize.
Down to the same two things that it's coming down to for most voters, which is immigration and the economy.
Yeah.
These are the two big issues across all the polls.
It is, I mean, whatever side of this you're on with Trump, it is fascinating that somebody who,
maybe older people, younger not so much. Well, yeah, obviously, like younger people just across the board are really progressive. Super progressive.
Many on your side believe is this appalling racist and everything else that
you have like incel stuff and red pill stuff, and you have like a lot of like young men that watch people like Aiden Ross and Sneeko and Andrew Tate or whatever. But by and large, like people under the age of 18 or whatever, Gen Alpha and Gen Z are way more progressive socially than their older counterparts.
He is increasing support in minority groups. Why is
certain talking? Because black people and Hispanic people and Asian people and white, we're not fundamentally different. You can appeal to people using certain talking points. Like, I hate that I'm saying this, but like Dave said, I agree that that talking about immigration and inflation, that's a thing that plays to a lot of communities.
What's happening right now is the country is bifurcating in ways that sort of buck the usual trends with respect to how minority voters vote in this country. Race is obviously super relevant, but it's becoming less relevant in favor of education. Like that's the big dividing line in this country right now. It's one of the reasons why Democrats were so successful in 2020, setting aside the House races, because we actually lost some seats in 2020. We did well in the Senate. We won the presidency. And then in 2022, we had like a historically good midterm. And part of the reason was because educated people in the suburbs started to vote for Democrats in way larger numbers than before. And the midterms, you have to remember, was also after Dobbs. And so, Trump and Dobbs and just kind of the makeup of the Supreme Court, generally speaking, has activated educated voters in this country to start to back Democrats at higher levels. So that's why you see like the Teamsters refuse to issue an endorsement this year, even though Joe Biden literally saved their pensions. It's because their union members are breaking for Republicans in ways that buck historical trends. And it's because these people don't have college degrees. That's like the big dividing line right now. And it's going to prove to be crucially important in this upcoming race. And so, just bear that in mind.
Especially if you're a poor community, especially if you don't have as much money, these are things that are probably hitting you the hardest. Now, the issue where the rubber meets the road is...
So, like, to the extent that Donald Trump performs better with minority voters, with black voters, with Hispanic voters, to the extent that he performs better with those voters, the overlap with like people without a college degree is going to be enormous. So the black voters that are switching and voting for Trump during this election cycle, and the Hispanic voters that are switching to vote for Trump during this election cycle, are going to be overwhelmingly people without a college degree.
is that while Trump will talk about inflation, while Trump was running for president, he ran huge deficits in a great economy. There's no reason for it. At least Biden has an excuse to run deficits. We're coming out of a global pandemic. And Donald Trump's every single policy that Donald Trump is talking about will increase inflation. It's going to. Who do you think? Do you think that I'm going to care if my coffee costs $10 or $15 because of tariffs? It's not going to bother me. It's not going to bother anybody sitting here. It's going to bother the very same communities that are trying to vote for him because they're worried about things like inflation.
Which is bad because many more people aren't going to college since it's so damn expensive. I don't know if that's true though. Like what percentage? Well, what we're seeing right now is women are going to college more than men, and so that's like broadening the gender gap. And so now we're seeing also like a gender gap is starting to become more pronounced in the voter in the makeup of the electorate. I think we're probably going to see record percentage of women in this election vote for Democrats, and maybe a record number of men vote for Republicans. But then it's also the case that women are getting college degrees at this point at a faster rate than men are. There's actually there's more women that are getting college degrees than men right now. And what are the implications for that down the line? What percentage of the country is college educated? I want to say it's like 30% or 35%. Oh my God, it's actually so much higher. The percentage of adults in the US between the ages of 25 to 64 with a college degree, with college degrees, certificates, or industry recognized certifications has increased from 37.9% in 2009 to 53.7% in 2020. I'm talking specifically about bachelor's degrees. I'm not talking about vocational training, because I don't think that education metric considers that.
And the policies themselves don't even make sense, right? What do you think is going to happen when we deport 12 million workers, or when we deport however many people Donald Trump wants to, or when we cut immigration even harder at the border, right? Donald Trump will simultaneously say, we're shipping all of our factories to Mexico because they're making cars down there, but we want to ban all the people from...
He's going to make the case that a lot of Hispanic voters favor a policy of deportation. I don't think he's right when he says... I think he's about to say that a larger percentage of Hispanic voters favor deportation than white people. I don't think that's true.
How did the United States to make the cars? It doesn't make any sense.
Allow me to remind you of my favorite statistic, which is...
I don't care about Obama. Obama is not running for president, so I don't know why. I don't care.
You're ahead of me, but let me do it anyway.
I've heard it. The deporter-in-chief.
It's my favorite stat.
It doesn't matter. All it proves is that Trump is a liar when you say he ran on immigration, because Obama was already deporting a ton of people.
The single greatest deporter of people in American presidential history, pro rata, per year, was Barack Obama.
So then would you say that Trump was...
This is like how to lie with statistics 101. The deporter-in-chief moniker that people gave Obama was not deserved. And you can look this up. What happened on Obama's watch was they changed the way that they classified deportations in this country. And if you would have used the same methodology to track deportations in this country that you used with Bill Clinton, that you used with George W. Bush, Obama would have deported less than those two presidents. What they did was, it used to be that if you turned someone away at the border, that was not considered a deportation. And on Obama's watch, they changed it so that if you turn somebody away at the border, they also considered that a deportation, which artificially inflated his numbers. But you'd have to get into the specifics. You'd have to know the particular details to be able to debunk that line, but it's just not true. You can look it up. Let me double check that. Hold on. Immigration activists have sharply criticized President Obama for a rising volume of deportations, labeling him the deporter-in-chief and staging large protests that have harmed his standing with some Latinos, a key group of voters for Democrats. But the portrait of a steadily increasing number of deportations rests on statistics that conceal almost as much as they disclose. Closer examination that shows immigrants living illegally in most of the continental U.S. are less likely to be deported today than before Obama came into office, according to immigration data. Expulsions of people who are settled and working in the United States have fallen steadily since his first year in office and are down more than 40% since 2009. So we're talking about people that are in the country that are removed. What the Obama administration did was they prioritized violent criminals. So if somebody was involved with gangs, if somebody got convicted of some kind of a violent crime, assault, whatever, he prioritized deporting those individuals, and he shifted the priority away from people that are just here illegally and, working with a fake social security number or something like that. On the other side of the ledger, the number of people deported at or near the border has gone up, primarily as a result of changing who gets counted in the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency's deportation statistics. The vast majority of those border crossers would not have been treated as formal deportations under most previous administrations. If all removals were tallied, the total sent back to Mexico each year would have been far higher under those previous administrations than it is now. The shift in who gets tallied helped the administration look tough in its early years, but now may be backfiring politically. Immigration advocates plan protests across the country, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that is what happened. So they used to not count. Like if somebody showed up at the border, they got caught trying to cross the border and they were sent back. That was not classified as a deportation before. But Obama started doing that. I didn't even realize that. Maybe he was doing that for political reasons to look tough. But again, like a few years into his presidency, you had all these progressives calling him the deporter in chief. But the reality is like the amount of people that were in the country that were deported out of the country actually went down on his watch. Anyways.
Lying when he said that the Democrats were bad on immigration?
3 million in 8 years.
Yeah, so would you say that Trump was lying when he said that Obama was bad on immigration?
No, I'm simply saying there's
I'm curious. Would you say that Donald Trump and the Republicans lied when they said that Obama had an open border?
There is so much...
Palin has probably said that Obama had an open border. Did they lie when they said that?
Call her Mrs. Palin. Be respectful.
Mrs. Palin.
Mrs. Palin.
Did Obama have an open border?
Hang on. Do you think Donald Trump's going to win in a week?
I do. And I think that, again, you are underestimating the wisdom of the people. The collective here in the electorate, people saying we do need a change from what we have just witnessed for 3.5 years, going on 4 years now. And Kamala will perpetuate, she will continue what the Biden administration did.
What do you think, Trump clearly has something, and I'll use this word and it's going to enrage these two. I don't mean it in the sense of fantasy magic.
Jam, thank you so much for 82 months. Appreciate it, pal.
But he's got a magical touch which allows vast numbers of people to gravitate to him. I saw it last night, not just in the Madison Square Garden. Outside, there were tens of thousands of people trying to get in.
It's not magic. It's called demagoguery. That's what it is. Demagoguery. It's playing into people's basest instincts, playing into people's fear, playing into people's confusion, playing into people's anger, playing into people's skepticism or distrust of minorities. It's not magic. Every dictator, every notable dictator across history has done the same playbook. Every single one of them.
Right, so he's got something. I saw Jonathan Karl on ABC this morning saying, whatever you think of it, he said, I can't think of a single Republican nominee ever who could have packed out Madison Square Garden at this stage of a campaign in
Reagan probably could have.
Democrat-dominated New York.
He's not even that popular. Has Trump's popularity
I'm just saying,
ever been
this is what
45%?
ABC's Jonathan Karl said, not me, right?
Is he going to win New York?
No, but you know what? He's going to do very much better in New York than people would have expected. And I do think there's a potential that Trump could do a massive...
That actually, in a way, hurts Republicans because it chips away at their electoral college advantage. Which is why some people are saying, like, we really have no idea what when we say electoral college disadvantage, we mean that Democrats will have to win the popular vote by a certain percentage in order to secure an electoral college win. So you can have a situation like in 2016 where Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by, I think, roughly 3 million votes, but she lost the electoral college in pretty convincing fashion. If she had been able to expand that national vote, that national share to a larger margin, 4, 5, 6%, then she might have been able to secure enough electoral college votes to secure the presidency. That's what we say when we talk about an electoral college disadvantage. The issue that Republicans are having right now is that it's true, they're making gains in states like New York, in states like Florida, and even in states like California. The problem is all of these states are safe blue or safe red. New York and California right now are really safe blue states. So it doesn't help Donald Trump to increase his vote share in New York. It doesn't help Donald Trump to increase his vote share in California. Florida is a very, very red state at this point, pretty securely red. And so you're eating away at that electoral college advantage that you had. You're just cannibalizing votes in states that don't matter. And so we could see a situation, for example, like it's possible, I'm not saying it's likely, it's possible that Kamala Harris is going to win the electoral college and lose the national vote. That's possible. That was basically impossible in 2020 and 2016. There was no way that was going to happen. There is a path for that to happen this time around. Now, like, the chances of that happening are very low, but you know, could the Electoral College disadvantage for Democrats only be 0.5% this time? 1%? So, like, whenever you go in, I'm sure some of you guys are clicking into a lot of Twitter threads that are talking about this issue, the Electoral College advantage. So I'm seeing, just anecdotally, a lot of MAGA people are like, oh, she has to win by like 10 million votes in order to get the Electoral College. So it's going to be a Trump landslide. And they have no idea what they're talking about. They have no idea how the dynamic has kind of shifted in recent times. And the Electoral College disadvantage for Democrats this time around is not going to be like 2 or 3 points. It's probably going to be like less than 1 point.
Sweep of all the swing states. I do. And I think he might also win the popular vote, which would be extraordinary, given where things are. I'm also reminded, Mehdi, that in the 2020 election, Trump...
My wife needs to know your election plans. She needs to know. I'm going to be streaming all day on election day. As soon as I wake up, I'm going to start streaming. I don't know if I'm going to like play Microsoft Flight. I think I might do what I did in 2020. I'm going to play Microsoft Flight Simulator and just fly around the swing states. Just go to like Pennsylvania and just fly around in a jet or whatever. We're just going to kill time until the polls close. And then like chances are, guys, we're not going to know who won on election night. So I may end the stream at like 9 p.m. my time and just get plenty of sleep and then just get back at it. Just like wake up early and start the stream early the next day.
Trump got nearly 10 million more votes than first time around in 2016. So notwithstanding your own...
Are you not going to be at Destiny's Election Podcast? I decided to say no because for me, it doesn't make any sense to so the day before election, the day of election, and the days after the election are going to be like my biggest days of the year in terms of making money. Doesn't make any sense for me to like spend money to go over there and then not really be able to stream. Like I just couldn't really justify it. So I want to be there. It just doesn't really make any sense for me to do that.
Very deep-rooted views about him. There is something, as I say, magical in his ability to bring these people to him and believe in him, right? It may be a magic that he hates and he hates.
I mean, there is other speakers in history.
I saw it last night. There is a fervor about his support, which is tangible.
Magic.
Yeah.
Well, I think, you know, if you take away...
It's true that Donald Trump supporters are like, there's nobody in the modern era that competes with Trump in terms of a cult of personality. The only one that comes close is Obama, but he did not have the same. It's just the level of dedication from Donald Trump's most loyal followers. Let's make up a number and say 25 to 30% of Republican voters are what we might call like super MAGA. And then the rest are... maybe they don't like Trump personally, but they like his policies, or maybe it's about like wokeness and wedge issues and blah, 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 blah. Bernie Sanders has like a similar kind of following, or at least he did back in 2020. I don't know about these days, because a lot of progressives like, or rather tankies like hate Bernie Sanders now. But there really is no, I don't think anybody can compete with Trump in terms of the cult of personality stuff. Destiny's making the correct point that doesn't make him popular. He has never been broadly popular. Donald Trump at no point in his political career has ever surpassed 50% approval. In fact, he's never surpassed, I think, 47% approval. And he's gone down as low as like 35 in the aftermath of January 6th. So it's true, he does have a very dedicated following. That does not make him a quote unquote popular politician. I think that's a really kind of silly way to put it.
The checkbook of and the bank account, right? That Trump is owner of. You can ratchet down what it is that he stands for and the way he speaks and the connection that he has with people that covers all demographics. He's like a regular person, and I know that personally.
We're just. We have now reached levels of absurdity. I don't know if there's nothing about Donald Trump that is regular by any metric. Nothing at all.
And
born into fabulous wealth. He was born into a kind of wealth that a fraction of a percentage of people get to enjoy throughout their life.
Been friends for many years before he became a bigwig in politics. We became friends because he had a connection with me through family. He saw what the press was doing to me, the media was doing to me back when I was a governor, when they were attacking my kids and they were on a national level. They were telling lies about my administration, my record, my reputation. And Trump started reaching out to me back then, saying, hey, you know, hang in there, and it's tragic what they're doing to your kids. That's not fair. So we connected over that. And then through these years, that connection has grown. I see personally, I see firsthand how he is able to reach out, and there is charisma there, the way he is able to reach out and make connections. He speaks like the everyday man.
Yeah.
People think that's...
Thank God. If somebody in your life, you know, a coworker, or a cousin, a friend, or a mutual friend, somebody you just met at a bar or whatever, talk to you the way that Donald Trump does, you would make some excuse to... You would make up some excuse to just walk away. Like just rambling, just like nothing but self-aggrandizing and juvenile insults at perceived slights and just like a stream of consciousness, like nonsense kind of thing that Trump does. You would find a way to like walk away. Oh, I have to go to the bathroom. You would like, it would like this type of behavior is not something that people generally like.
Perhaps uncouth and...
Uncouth. Yeah, that's one way to put it. Jacob, thank you so much for the primer.
And he may not have some kind of pedigree that some people would desire to see in him, but that mirrors kind of the general population in America, where, again, take away the checkbook, take away the money, and he can connect to the everyday man.
If you took away Trump's money, he would be nothing. He would just be some deranged lunatic. If you took away his money, he would be in jail by now. Are you kidding me? Would he even be alive? Would he even be able to support himself and like live in the real world if he didn't inherit all that money?
Who's going to win? Putting aside who you want to win,
don't know.
Who's going to win?
I don't know.
That means to me you think he's going to win.
Yeah, of course he could win. I've said that to anyone.
But the fact you don't know means you think...
Of course he could win. He's neck and neck in the polls, which probably means he's leading. If you're neck and neck in the polls, Trump's support is often understated in the polls.
Yeah.
So I think Democrats should be panicking. Yeah.
That's not the whole story. That's not the whole story. And I feel like Mehdi probably knows that. We've said this 1,000 times on the stream, but there's probably some new people in here. I'm sure there's like some new viewers in Twitch and on YouTube. But the polls have now been like really consistently been understating Democratic performance for the last 2.5 years. Now, it's true. Those were like the 2022 midterms, for example. That's like a low turnout situation, and Trump's not on the ballot. If Trump was on the ballot in 2022, would those results have been different? But if you're just assuming that the polling error is going to be in favor of Trump this time around, I think that's misguided. You might ultimately be vindicated. You might be right. What's up, Dad? You may be right that if you're telling me now that the polls are going to underestimate Trump again, you might be right, but you have no idea how that's going to work out. In 2012, the polls underestimated Obama. At this point in the election cycle in 2012, there was so much doomerism going on with Democrats. Like Democrats, similarly to like what we're seeing now, where there's a lot of like bedwetting. That was going on for Obama in October of 2012. A lot of people thought that Mitt Romney was going to win that election, and then Barack Obama ended up overperforming by 2, 3, 4, 5 points in various states. We have no idea who the polling error is going to favor in this election. We have no idea. Anybody who claims that they know for sure, they don't. It's just a hunch.
Yeah, he did better in 2016 and 2020 than he was polling.
Yes,
right.
Which is
so. Now
although I would say there's 500,000 Puerto Ricans in Pennsylvania, I'm sure the Democrats can.
Dave, let me ask you, Dave, who are you going to vote for?
I did not vote for Trump in 2016 or 2020, and I've been basically just as of this week being like, I might actually vote for him this time. And just to...
I actually don't believe him that he didn't vote for Trump in 2016 and 2020, just for the record. I just don't believe him.
Be clear, it is totally just a vote against Kamala.
Dad, I got something for you. Hold on. The next time I see you, that is a genuine, authentic, official piece of Trump merch. Now, I also have this guy. So the next time I see you, maybe we can sit out on the porch smoking cigars, and you can wear the Harris hat and I'll wear the MAGA hat, and we can bond. Next time I see you, I'll give that to you.
Harris. I was so disgusted at her campaigning with Liz Cheney and going on this tour of like trying to, I don't know.
New follower from Europe. One of my friends floated the idea of potentially shy Kamala voters who would otherwise lean and respond Republican in swing state polls, similar to shy Trump voters in 2016. While polls obviously can't pick this up, could you see this being a thing? I don't know about shy Kamala voters. I really doubt that. There is some evidence that the shy voter phenomenon was actually a thing in 2016 and to a lesser extent in 2020. But how many shy voters are there now? I just don't think. I think that there are permission structures in place in the cultural zeitgeist for people to be open about their support for Trump. I think immigration and the economy make people more comfortable saying like, hey, I don't like his personality, but my life was better in 2019 or whatever. And so I think like the shy Trump voter, I really doubt that's going to be a thing in 2024. Now, the flip side of that is I really doubt like who is a shy Kamala voter. I don't, it's hard for me to imagine a shy Kamala voter. I don't really understand that. But there is something interesting that happened shortly after Kamala became the de facto nominee for the Democratic Party, is that the Democratic Party registered a load of new, more educated women voters. Let me say that again. There was a huge spike in voter registrations amongst educated women in this country after she became the nominee. And so there is a question that some pollsters have, because when pollsters reach out to different groups, they will weight certain answers in different ways. So they'll assign a multiplier of something that either takes away value or adds value to that vote in an attempt to try to reflect the national environment. And so if they reach out to 1,000 people and we know that, 50% of the country has a college degree, but only 20% of people that answered had college degrees, they'll assign a value to the college degree poll respondent that is more than just like the median person. And so there is a question of whether or not the polls are accurately weighting women voters in this country after we saw record numbers of registrations. So that's like an open question. I do know this, guys. If Kamala wins, it's going to be largely because of women. But take comfort in the fact that what we do know about women is that now they are, number one, they're more likely to be college graduates, and number two, they vote more than men. Typically, you see a slightly higher percentage of women participating in elections than men. It's not by like there's not a huge delta there, but women tend to vote more. And so there are a lot of signs right now that you could interpret to predict a really convincing Kamala electoral college victory, despite what the polls are saying. But there's nothing, I can't tell you it's for sure going to happen. I can't tell you for sure that the pollsters are missing this or that thing. But there are some indications, many indications that you can point to that it's going to be like a blowout. I just don't want to commit to that because the flip side could be true as well. Like the flip side is that the pollsters are again understating Donald Trump's popularity, and then he wins in a blowout. He wins by a larger margin than he won in 2016. And if that happens, or if he wins, commensurately, the House isn't looking so good for Democrats as well. So like whoever wins the presidency, whatever party wins the presidency, I think they have a decent chance of winning the House as well. And the Senate looks bad for Democrats no matter what. So I don't think we can count on the Senate. I mean, I'm not saying definitely vote. Like if you're in Texas, if you're in Florida, if you're in Montana, if you're in Ohio, if you're in Nevada, if you're in Arizona, take these elections seriously and vote in the down ballot races. But I think whoever wins the presidency, that party's probably going to take the House. So if Kamala wins, I think Democrats probably going to take the House. If Trump wins, I don't think the Democrats are going to take back the House. Yeah.
Rehabilitate the image of the Cheneys, and I'm so disgusted at the fact that I've never seen a campaign like Kamala Harris's before, where there's literally running on nothing. Yeah. I mean, not even like running on bad idea.
This is just not true.
Well, listen, I don't think it's not literally true, but
this is the appropriate response. What he said is absurd.
What I'm saying, obviously, is that she ran a campaign for president in 2020. She has walked away from every central issue that she was campaigning on in 2020.
Yeah, she pivoted to the center. Yeah, that's what politicians do in elections. They pivot to the center. That's usually the smart play.
asked about it,
you run on like a super progressive platform, and then if you secure the nomination, you pivot to the center. That's what happens every single time.
He says, that was 5 years ago. Like that's there's
defund
no
the police.
Oh,
I don't want to defund the police.
I'm not for that.
Ban
My
fracking.
values
I don't want to ban
haven't
fracking.
changed. My values haven't changed. It was 5 years ago.
Well, Trump is different. Trump is a different beast, but typically, like the candidate from either party, from both parties, will pivot somewhat to the center during the general.
The 3-hour interview with Joe Rogan had lied like 50 times.
Let me, all right,
okay, anyway.
on his policy.
But just to be clear, you are going to vote Trump.
He could say something that disgusts me so much in between now and when I vote that I might not like. If he's ever
No, bro, this guy's now he's got a full-on podcast career. He's got an audience to consider. Like, this is audience capture right here. Of course he's going to vote for Trump. How could you, which, like, if you're a libertarian, how could you justify voting for Trump? Are you kidding me? Like, aren't libertarians, isn't the number one issue, like, reducing spending in government? How could you justify voting for Trump, who spent more money than any president in history, who expanded our deficit to the highest amount we've ever seen it in our lifetime, who ran up our debt higher than any president ever? He spent more money than any president ever. He didn't pay for any of it. He cut taxes.
I think he said last night disgusted you.
I didn't actually watch the full speech last night, but the stuff, anything on the topic of Israel is probably going to risk losing my support for him. But I do think that there is something about the Kamala Harris campaign that is almost like a completely manufactured campaign by the machine. She's not running on what she ran on last time she ran for president. She's not running on her track record as vice president because she's not Joe Biden.
Yeah.
And so I just find it like, I'm so disgusted by it that I want it to lose.
Will you be voting Trump?
Absolutely not.
Will you vote for Kamala Harris with great enthusiasm?
Yes.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yes.
Trump
Really?
is one of the,
You really believe
the
she's
most
the one?
appalling thing. Yeah, of course. I was promised communism after 8 years of a foreign Kenyan person being in office, Obama, and that didn't happen. I was promised communism, socialism, and all my guns were going to be gone. I lived in Omaha, Nebraska, and every time a Democrat was up for office, you need to come down to Ammo's R Us and buy guns. They're going to take them. It never happened under Biden. The United States economy is outperforming every other economy in the world right now. Under Biden's policies that ostensibly Harris will continue. She will most likely continue these policies. The idea that Trump, and also the hilarious thing of Kamala's running on nothing. Trump is running on tariffs, and deportation.
Okay, but let me ask you a different question.
Mass deportation.
Who do you think is going to win?
Mehdi, I have no idea.
Okay. By the way, that's my answer too, essentially.
That they've got.
Bye, Dad.
Though,
would
you have rather seen some competition to allow the cream to rise?
Would you have rather seen Trump accept a debate with any of the other people, with DeSantis or any of the other Republican candidates who are running?
I love debate, and
Wait,
in a way,
were the Republicans calling for? Did you call for Donald Trump to accept debates?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, because I didn't hear the Republican Party call for him much.
But the truth is, he ran away with the nomination so fast and so aggressively, it was all over.
It's also like, I wanted to see, just for the entertainment value, I wanted to see Trump in those debates.
I actually would have enjoyed watching him beat up Ron DeSantis.
The irony is Kamala Harris actually beat him in their one debate, no question. But I think she's going to lose the election, and when she does, it will be because of cost of living and immigration. But look, I've got to
I don't know if she's going to lose, but if she does, he's right about that.
leave it there. It's been a fantastically entertaining panel. In England, what we would do after such a lively exchange, we'd all go and find the nearest pub and have a few pints and put our differences aside. I'm not expecting you to do that, but I do appreciate you all coming on Uncensored. Thank you very much indeed.
What an amazing episode of Piers Morgan. 10 out of 10. I want to nominate it for Emmys. Can we do that? Can we start nominating YouTube videos for Emmys? Like, we need to save this video. I mean, this is like a top 10 political season video. What amazing content.